What is going on, guys, and welcome to CSS Flexbox tutorial and project video. In the tutorial, we'll cover what is CSS Flexbox, how to use CSS Flexbox, and once we'll know the theory about the Flexbox, we'll build a portfolio project using only CSS and CSS Flexbox. So first, let's check it out what we're going to be building in the project. As you can see over here, we're going to start with a nav bar, and over here this is going to be the logo, and these are actually going to be links. However, if we're going to make over here our screen size smaller, you can see that we're going to have a button, and with the help of a button, we're going to be able to actually display the links in column layout. Now, once we're done with a nav bar, then over here this is going to be our header section where we're going to have a title. Now, next section is going to be an about section. So over here, we're going to have a picture, and over here, these are going to be two links. Then these are going to be services section. So we're going to use a font awesome over here, and we're going to just create 6 of them. Now, once we're done with a services section, then the next one is going to be over here, numbers section. And after the numbers section, we're actually going to have a project section. So in the project section, again, we're going to have pictures. And as we're hovering over here, you can see that our link icon is going to be displayed. Now, once we're done with a project section, this is going to be the contact section. We're going to place 3 forms over here and a button in the bottom. And the last one is going to be footer, where we're just going to place a social icons. So now that we have looked at our project, first things first, what is CSS Flexbox? It is officially called Flexible Box Layout Module. And the beauty of the Flexbox is that it makes much more easier to design flexible, responsive layouts without having to use floats or other CSS hacks. Now, before we dive into the exciting world of CSS Flexbox, we need to talk about vendor prefixes. When working with a Flexbox, we still need to take care of older browsers. And that, my friends, means browser prefixes. As you can see, even for one property, we can just start typing away over here. In order not to make this tutorial confusing, we will just write our CSS without prefixes. And at the end of the project, I'll show you how you can add vendor prefixes to your whole CSS at once instead of adding them property by property. Now, before we can start working with a Flexbox and looking at its many properties, we would first need to do our setup. So here you can see that I'm in my desktop, and this would be the index.html, and I have main CSS in my Flexbox folder. And I open up my folder in my text editor, which is going to be Visual Studio Code. And like you see over here, I have linked over here the main CSS. Now, once we're done with the setup video, we're only going to be working with a Flexbox properties. So just hang in there, and we're going to get through this shortly. So the first thing that I would want in a HTML, I would need actually a parent container and children. So here I'm going to say that there's going to be a div, and I'm just going to say that this div is going to class of container over here like this. Now in the container, I'm actually going to have 5 children elements, and all those children elements are going to have class of box, and also they're going to have a class of box, and over here we're just going to have either 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So here we're just going to say that this is going to be my box, and over here we're going to say that this would be number 1. So here I'm going to write that this is going to be number 1, and also the class is going to be number 1. And what we're going to do over here, we're just going to say that there's going to be 5 of them over here, and we're just going to have to change the values. So if this is going to be the box 5, then also this is going to be the value of box 5, and this is going to be 4, this is going to be 3, and this is going to be 2 over here. Now also we're going to change these values to 3 and over here 4. Now let's save this, and we're going to go to the main CSS and actually style these boxes. Now, like I said, this is only the first setup video. We're going to be doing the colors and everything. Once we're done, we're just going to be working with a Flexbox property. So first, what I would want is for the whole container, I'm just going to set a border, because this is going to help us understand a Flexbox a little bit better. So I'm going to say border 5 pixels, and let's say solid right over here. So we can actually see. So you can see that this is going to be over here, my container. Now next, I would want to add styles for all the boxes. So I'm going to say over here for all the boxes, I would want padding, and we're going to say 30 pixels. Then we're going to do a text align. So I'm going to say over here text align, and we're going to do center over here. So now the value is in the center. Then we're going to say that we would want a font size. So we're going to go down over here. We're going to say font size is going to be 35 pixels. And maybe let me go over here, and I'm just going to have a little bit of less of zoom in. So here we're going to say that this is going to be like this, so 100%. And then the last one, we're going to say that there's going to be a color of white over here. So color of white. So now obviously we're not going to be able to see the numbers because we need to go to each and every box and obviously add over here this color. So here we're going to start with a box number 1. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be the box number 1. And now we would want a background of this brown color. So I'm going to say over here, background. And we're going to find where is my background. And over here, we can just copy and paste this over here. So this is going to be our brown color. Now, obviously, you can pause the video and write down the colors. Just you can see over here that I actually already made a mistake. It wasn't Z at the end over here. It's just 1/8. And once we're done applying the style to the first box, we need to make 4 more. So here, I'm just going to select the first box. And over here, we're just going to copy and paste it a few times. So let's say this is going to be 3, 4, and 5. And over here, again, we just need to change the values. So this is going to be box number 3 over here. This is going to be box number 4, and this is going to be number 5. Now over here, let's change the values. So the next one over here is going to be the yellow one. So we can just go ahead and go over here and just add this yellow. Copy and paste this, and you can see that now I would have a yellow one. So if I save it, now I can see that my box is going to be yellow. Then after that, I have the orange one over here, and we're going to copy and paste it again. And to all of them, we're going to do the same thing. So this is going to be the orange. Then over here, we're going to have a blue. So number 4 is going to be blue. And over here, the last one is going to be green. And we're just going to say that number 5 over here is going to be green. So once we are done adding the colors, we're actually going to go to index.html. And for now, we're not going to be working in the main CSS. And the way we're going to do this, you can see over here that I have my style tags and all the classes that we're going to be working in and all the rules that we're going to be working in with the Flexbox. We're actually going to write it over here in the style tags. Now, obviously, in the normal setup, this is not how you would actually do it. But just because I don't want to mix up the actual Flexbox properties together with whatever we were doing for styling, therefore, we're just going to write over here them separately. So the first thing always for the Flexbox, if we want Flexbox to work, what we need is a parent container. And over here, this parent container needs to have at least 1 child. Now, obviously, in this case, you can see that we have 5 of them. But at least you need 1 in order to work with the Flexbox. Now, you can write the actual properties and rules, but it's not going to make sense if you don't have any children. Now, how we can start working with the Flexbox. See over here this container, and you can see that this is a parent element to 5 elements over here. So what we're going to do over here, we're going to say that we would want to select a container, and then we would need to apply a property and a value. Now the property is going to be over here, display, and the actual value is going to be the flex. So you can see over here, once I'm going to save it, check it out what happens. You can see already that something happened once we only applied flex. Now I need to tell you right away that there's a lot of things actually that are happening under the hood that we cannot see. And obviously, as we're going to be working with a properties and values, you're going to see that there's many default preset values. And therefore, this is looking like this. But for this video, what we just need to remember that in order just to start working with the flex, you can see that once we add the flex, all the over here items are in a row like this. Now we have 2 options. We have display flex or we have display inline flex. So let's say if I'm just going to comment this out, just so you can have it for reference. And if I'm going to say over here display, and instead of flex, we're going to write inline flex. Now you can see what happens. If I'm going to save it, the actual CSS is going to treat this like this is an inline element. So you can see that with the flex, this would be block 11 element. where it's spanning from one side of the screen all the way to the other side of the screen. So if I'm changing the screen size, also this block element is changing. What would be the width? Now with an inline, you can see that it only wraps over here around whatever elements we have over here. So this would be the difference. So let me again comment the inline flex out, and we're going to uncomment this one. And now you can see that again, we have the block element. And this is going to be for this video. And in the next video, we're going to start exploring Flexbox properties. Whenever we're going to be working with a Flexbox, we'll have access to the two sets of properties. There's going to be properties that are going to affect all children. So we're going to be applying them to the actual parent container. And then there's going to be sets of properties that we're going to apply individually to each child. So basically, there's going to be properties where we can style all of them in a certain way altogether. And then there's going to be properties which we can add individually to each and every child and actually change the pattern that was set to the parent. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking first at the properties that we apply to the parent container that would affect all children. And first of such properties is actually going to be flex direction. So flex direction, let's check it out what it actually does. So here, if I'm going to write flex, and we're going to say over here direction, now we still need to keep the display flex, that didn't change. But over here, if we have a flex direction, you can see that right away a Visual Studio Code gives me some options over here. And basically, we're looking at a for over here. So we have a row, which would be the default one. So basically what you see over here. Then we'll have a row reverse, then we'll have a column, and then we'll have a column reverse. So let's start first with a row. And like I said, since this is by default, do not think that there's something wrong with your code. Like I said, there's a lot of things happening actually under the hood just because we applied over here flex. So now we have seen how the row would look. Let's check it out how the row reverse. So here we have a few options. We can just comment this out over here, and I can just copy and paste it. Let's write over here reverse and just uncomment this. And once we save it, sure enough, what happens right now, we have a row, and Flex actually reversed all the containers that we had over here and pretty much made them from the other side. So you can see that one was over here. So we still are actually in a row, in the Flex row. However, the container number one is actually over here all the way on this side. Now, once we have covered row reverse, let's actually look at a column. So let's say over here, I'm going to just copy and paste this, and then we're going to comment this out. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be the column. So let me write what would the column look like. So this is how the Flex column is going to look like. And you're not mistaken, it actually looks exactly like we would be working before, where we didn't apply any kind of flex. But this way, we're actually styling them vertically instead of horizontally. And once we have checked out a row reverse and column, you can already guess what would a column reverse to. So here, if we're going to write column reverse, sure enough, now over here, the 5 is actually all the way on the top. And over here, 1 is all the way in the bottom. So this property would be called a flex direction. And that usually is actually going to be the first parent property that we're going to be actually applying. So first, once we have a display flex, once we have set the flex box for the whole container, then we're going to right away decide which way we would want to go. Now, obviously, most of the times we're going to be working with a row. So here, since we know that this is by default, if we're just going to have flex, then we don't need to specifically write a flex direction if we don't want to do a row reverse or column reverse. So from now on, when we're going to be working with a different properties, just understand that by default, we have the row going on everywhere. And I don't see the point of actually repeating this, the fact that we have a row over here. If I'm going to change this flex direction, I'm obviously going to let you know. But we're just going to assume that we have a flex direction row, and then we're going to check out a other property. Now, once we have our first property out of the way, which would be a flex direction, now let's look at a flex wrap property. Now, before we actually work over here in styling the property, let's go ahead over here and let's add a few more boxes just to show you why this property actually is very neat and actually very necessary. So let's say over here that if I have 5 boxes, I'm going to create over here 5 more over here. You know what? Let's do 4. So let's say over here that this is going to be a div over here. We're just going to say that this is going to be big G, which is going to stand for generic over here box. And we're just going to change this one to a box. And we're going to say over here that this is going to be generic. So this is going to be our generic class. Now what I would want, I guess, in this case, we're just going to apply a multiple cursors over here. And we're just going to change over here this one to generic over here. So once we have these few boxes over here, what I would want is actually go ahead and style them. So I'm going to go ahead over here and I'm just going to say for generic what I would want. Over here, I'm going to say that this is going to be a background. And over here, we're going to say background. And let's do over here this one. So we're going to save it over here. And as you can see that because these boxes over here didn't fit in a small screen over here, you can see that I actually have to scroll. And obviously, this is not a user experience that you want to do whenever you're working in any kind of web project. So let's say over here, if the screen size is big enough, everything is going to be fine. You can see that if Flexbox is going to be able to fit all of the elements in the container, it's actually going to do that. However, as we are making the screen size smaller, you can see that right now, again, I need to start scrolling. So imagine if you would have some type of nav bar or something like this, and you would have links, but actually the user needs to scroll over here to the side of the page, which is actually out of his screen, to look for the link. Now that's probably not what you would want. So this is where a flex wrap comes to help. So here we need to go back to the container, and you guessed it correctly, we have a flex and the property name is flex wrap. Now again, by default we actually have this no wrap. So this is why over here we need to start scrolling, because we have this default no wrap property. However, if we're going to change it over here and we're going to say that this is going to be the wrap and we save it, you can see that Flexbox creates actually another row the moment it runs out of the space. So you see over here that if I have a big screen, everything is working fine, everything is working perfect. However, as I'm going to be making my screen size smaller, you can see that it almost is hitting the edge over here, the actual border. And the moment it actually happens, Flex Wrap creates a new row and places the elements that do not fit over here in the first row, actually in the second row. So if I'm going to make it really small over here, you can see that I actually have a 3 rows. Now you have to agree that this would be a far better experience than actually scrolling outside of your actual project. Now over here, like you see that we have a flex wrap, we have a no wrap, which would be a default. So if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm going to say no wrap over here like this, you can see that actually what's going to happen is we're going to have, again, this default behavior where we are going out of the page. Now, also what we have is actually a wrap, and this is going to be a wrap reverse. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say that this is going to be a wrap and wrap reverse. So we'll save this, and the same as how we had for the flex direction when we had a row reverse. Over here it works the same way. So basically we'll start again over here with all the elements the way we have designed them in HTML. However, as I'm running out of the space, what's going to happen is Flexbox is actually going to flip them. So you can see that one is over here starting, and then we're going backwards over here like this. So if I'm going to make, again, really small, this is the actual look that's going to happen. So this would be a flex wrap property for the Flexbox. The next two properties that we're going to be covering from the Flexbox are probably going to be your favorite ones, because one is going to be dealing with a horizontal centering, and the other one is going to be dealing with a vertical centering. So basically it's going to leave all your pain of dealing with a CSS and centering. Now for this example, we don't need these generic boxes over here. So what I'm going to say over here that I'm going to just comment them out. So you can see over here that if I save it, I again have these 5 boxes. Now what do we use for a horizontal centering? Well, that would be the property of justify content. And again, it has a default value, which would be flex start. And then we have 4 more over here. So let's start over here again with a flex start. So we know that we need to be working over here with a flex row. So we're not going to add a flex direction. And we're just going to say over here that this is going to be justify content. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be a start. So here we're going to say that this is going to be a flex start. So once we have this property, you can see again that nothing is changing. And this is happening by the default. So again, this is one of those properties. The moment we add over here this display flex, these are all the things that are happening. So over here, we're going to change it to the flex start. And we're just going to say over here, flex end. So you can already guess what's going to happen. So now all the boxes over here are going to move from the left side all the way to the right side. Now you can see that with a row reverse, we actually changed the elements. So actually one came all the way over here to the end of the line. Now with a flex end, we're just moving them all the way to the right hand side over here. Now, once we have covered flex end, let's look at a center. So again, if I'm just going to change it over here, guide to this to a center over here. Once we save it, now all my elements are over here in the center. So you can see that I have even spaces over here on the left hand side and on the right hand side. And obviously it doesn't matter what is the screen size. So if I go over here like this, you can see that everything's still going to work, whether it's going to be center or start or end. This is all going to be working either way with a Flexbox. So this is, like I said, you're going to be using a lot because this makes a lot of sense just to center everything over here in our container. Now, once we have covered justify content center, let's look at a space between and the space around. Now, the space between is actually going to evenly distribute. However, the first element is going to be on the start line, and the last one is going to be the end. So here, if I'm going to write that this is going to be space between, so let's say we're going to say space between. Now you can see that I evenly distributed. However, the first one is here, and the last one is over here on the last line. Now the space around is going to say the thing, but evenly distributed. However, equal spaces all around. So let me show you how it's going to look like, because I think it's going to be easier to show. So here we're going to say space around, and check it out what happens. Now you can see that I have even spaces over here on the sides also. Now obviously there's going to be double space because we have two elements and this is only one element dealing with the border. However, this is going to a lot of times space it out more nicely than, let's say, you would have with a space around. Anyone who has ever worked with a CSS knows the pain and suffering for actually placing the items vertically in the center. Now we have our hacks already for placing the elements in the center. We can use a margins for horizontal. However, whenever we're doing vertically, we need to start working with something like table cell. We need to start actually scouring through the posts on Stack Overflow and you name it. So Flexbox actually offers a very nice and very neat way how we can fix this. Now, first, what I would want though is I would want some kind of height over here for this container, because so far what you can see that I have a container and vertically it is actually wrapping the elements. So it doesn't matter how I'm going to align them. If I don't have any kind of height that is bigger over here than these boxes, then nothing is going to be working. So here for this, I'm just going to say that there's going to be a height for this container. I'm going to say that this is going to be 300 pixels over here like this. So once I save it, again, we can see a few things happening right away by default. And the first thing that is actually happening, you can see that once we have the line items, we actually have over here this stretch. And you can see that I haven't added this property over here, like I said before, because this is happening under the hood once we have over here this display flex. So even if I'm going to come back over here, and if I'm going to say align items, and I'm going to say stretch, you can see that nothing is going to change. Because Flexbox by default is going to stretch over here these items according to the parent container size. So once we have the stretch out of the way, let's do a flex, and we're going to do flex start. So let's save it. And now you can see that my boxes are actually aligned all the way on the top to the actual top border of the parent container. So this would be a flex start. Now, the same way how we're working with a flex start, we can actually do a flex end. So if I'm going to go over here and if I'm going to say flex end, you can see that my boxes are actually going to be all the way over here in the bottom. Now, also we have a center, and this should be a self-explanatory. So we're going to say align items, and we're going to do center. You can see that the boxes are going to be actually in the center of my container. Now, the last one over here is going to be the baseline. So let's go back over here, and we're going to say baseline. Now, once we have the baseline, you can see that it is very similar to the flex start. And yes, it is true. It is very similar. However, let me show you the difference. So let's say over here that we have 5 elements. Now, if I'm going to go back over here, and for the box number 3, you can see that we had a font size 35 for all of them. But let's say that I'm going to override this, and I'm going to say over here font size, and this is going to be, instead of 35, this is going to be 60 pixels. So check it out what we have. So far we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. However, notice over here that we are aligning them actually whatever the values are inside. Now let me show you what would happen with a flex start. So let me go back if index HTML, and let me just get rid of this one. And let's say that this is not going to be baseline. This is actually going to be start. So we're going to say over here flex and start. We'll save it, and now I can see that my boxes are aligned. However, this one is actually out of the way because this one has a bigger font. Now, where we would actually use this? Well, we would use it whenever we're going to be working in the project on a navbar. Well, that's going to be one of the examples, but let me just give you the primary. So here we would have some kind of logo on the left-hand side over here, and then we're going to have links. So what we would want is, since the logos usually are going to be way bigger than our actual links, we still would want to line them up evenly. So we're going to say over here that this would be a baseline. So in this case, once we save it, you can see that everything is aligned according whatever we have actually text inside the element. So instead of actually using these values, where we're just aligning them according to the actual top border of the parent container. Now, we will going to be doing quite a few projects. So I don't see the point of actually making a small project where we create over here this one, some kind of logo, and then the nav links, because you're going to be probably sick of building navbars in this course. So I'm just going to leave it as it is right now. So all we need to remember that align items is going to work differently because it's actually going to use this baseline, and it's actually going to align them where over here we have the text instead of just placing them on a start or on the end. Now, I know I said in last video that I wouldn't want to do any kind of small projects because there's going to be plenty of big ones that we're going to be doing anyway. However, I do want to show you how to actually use a justify content and align items to actually creating a banner. So let's go ahead, and what we actually need for this very, very small project is going to be some kind of background image. Now, it doesn't really matter what kind of image you get. As long as you have the image over here in the folder, you're going to be good to go. So obviously right now you can just pause the video and get some kind of image in your folder. So once you have the image over here, what I would want is actually create over here a banner HTML. So I'm going to say new file, and we're just going to call this banner HTML over here like this. Now in the banner HTML with a Visual Studio Code, I can just type over here this exclamation mark, and you can see that I have emmet by default. So here, this is going to be my background HTML, or I'm sorry, my banner HTML. Now in the actual banner, what I would want over here. So let's say that first I'm going to open a live preview over here. So this is going to be my document, and I'm just going to place some kind of heading over here. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be heading, and let's say over here, we're going to say the typical hello world over here. So this is what we have over here. Now I'm not going to create a separate style sheet. I'm just going to actually use a style tags. So over here, we know that we would want to do two things. First, we would want to apply a background as an image. So we would set a background property and actually add an image. Now that obviously has nothing to do with the Flexbox. But then we would want to use a justify content and align items to actually place it over here in the center, so it stays there no matter on the screen size. So let's say over here that we have a style over here, not a section. We actually need a style, and within the style tags, now the first one, since we're going to be using align items, we would need some kind of height over here. Now, obviously over here, you can see that I have only this guy over here. So this would be a heading 1. So I can just use over here for the body, or you know what? No, let's make it a little bit nicer. Let's just say over here that this is going to be header. So just so we can understand that this is going to be one element. And what I'm going to say over here that I would want to move this. So I'm going to select again this line, and I'm going to move this heading 1 over here in the actual hello world. So then we have a header and a hello world. Now within the style tags, the first what I would want is actually add a height for the header. So I'm going to say over here that I would want to select the header, and now I would need to apply the height. Now, whenever I'm working with the CSS, I actually like to use a VH values whenever I'm setting over here height or VW ones for the width. So let's say over here, I'm going to say that header should have a minimum height of 100 view heights. Now, what I'm saying over here, what I'm saying is that no matter of the screen size, whatever the actual user should see over here would be this whole thing over here. So let's say if I'm going to say a background, and if I'm just going to type over here red, you can see that I'm going to have the whole document over here. Now, obviously, I have some paddings and margins that are by default. So first, what I would need over here is actually have a margin 0 over here, and then we're going to have a padding 0 over here. So once we have over here like this, you can see that this is how it's going to look like. Now, once we have the margin and padding, and the header is actually set to 100 view heights, instead of the red color over here, what we're going to say is we're going to say this is going to be URL, and now this is where our picture comes into play. Now, once we have our URL, now over here, I would need to point to where my image is. So let's say over here that we're going to have a quotation marks, and in the quotation marks, we're going to have to write what is the name of our image. So my one is going to be header BCG, and over here we're going to say 3, and this is going to be JPEG. So once we save it, you can see that right now I have an image over here. And if I'm going to go back over here, and let's say that there's going to be a div with a class of banner, and let's say again I'm going to go back and I'm just going to select this banner and give it a min height again of 100 view heights, meaning 100% of the screen. And let's do a, I don't know, background, and let's do blue. You can see over here that right now I have my background as an image over here. However, as I scroll down, you can see that this is also taking exactly 100% of the view. So this is what I like to use actually whenever I'm setting anything. I'm actually like to use a view heights instead of pixels, because this allows me to actually work with a screen sizes, not just working with some kind of absolute values. Now, there's a couple of things that I would need to fix over here, and I'm just going to do it as a long format. I'm not going to write a shortcut just so it's a little bit easier for you to understand. So first one, we're going to say that there's going to be a background. So now what we would want is actually add this image in the center. So here we're going to say background, and this is going to be a where it is located. So we're going to say background position, and over here we're going to say center. So this is going to be the first one. So now we place the image in our center. Now, once we have added a background position property, next one is going to be background, and this is going to be background size. So here we're going to have an option of cover or contain. So basically what we're saying with a cover, that we would want to cover the whole screen over here with this image over here. So now once we actually start scrolling, you can see that image is sitting here. Now, once we have the background size, we also would want to do a background, and then we're going to say background attachment. So here we're going to say background attachment, and this is going to be the fixed. Now, why we're using the fixed? Well, the fixed allows us to create a parallax effect. So you can see that my background is actually staying put over here. However, as I'm scrolling down, you can see that the text is still scrolling over here, but the background is over here sitting like this. So this is what creates over here this background attachment. So we have background attachment fixed, and this is what's creating. And the last one we're going to do is a background. Over here, I'm going to say repeat, and we're going to do no repeat. So this is going to make sure that if the image is too small, it's never repeating. So once we have these properties over here, now let's check it out how we can place this text with a flexbox exactly in the center over here. Now, before we actually place it in the center, maybe let's go ahead and add for heading 1. Let's do a font size. over here of 60 pixels. So we save it, and now I can see this is going to be my 60 pixels. And let's do a color of white over here. So this is going to be my white color. So we're going to go back over here, and since we see over here that we have a header and we have that one child over here. So like I said, minimum we need one child over here. So this would be a Flexbox parent container, and this is going to be a heading 1 as a Flexbox child. So we're going to go to a Flexbox parent container, and we already know what would be the first property, and that's actually going to be display flex over here. So we save it, and now we have a hello world, but our header is actually display flex. And now we know the two properties that we would want in order to place it in the center. So first one, we can style justify content, and we can just say over here center. So this is gonna actually add this one in the center, and the next one is going to be align items, and we're also going to do center. So now I can see that with 3 lines of code and actually adding some kind of height, and again, you don't need to add this 100 height. I just wanted to show you what most of the banners have, because they have this 100 view heights over here. Now, obviously you can do a 400 pixels if you want. It doesn't really matter. However, you do need some kind of height if you want to place it over here in the center like this. But then with 3 properties, and you're good to go, because your whole text is sitting over here inside a center of a parent container, and no matter of the screen size, this is always going to stay like this. Now, once we are done with our centering example, now let's look at a last property that we're gonna be looking at for a Flexbox container, and that's gonna be align content. So this would be the last property that's gonna actually affect all of them. And let me show you over here that we obviously need to change the fonts, and let's say over here that we would want to delete this font size over here. So I'm gonna go back over here, and then we're gonna have a index HTML. Now align content is actually very similar to the align items. However, align content is dealing when we have actually multiple rows. So for this, you see over here when we commented out a boxes. So what I would want to do over here, again, I would want to go back and I would want to uncomment this. So now you can see that we have multiple over here, again, generic boxes. Now for this, let's start by saying that we would want a flex wrap, because obviously right now we just have a 1 row. So here we're going to say flex, and we're going to do a wrap, and we're just going to do wrap over here. So now we have 2 lines. Now after that, what I would want is also add a little bit more height. So let's say over here that I'm going to say that this is going to be a 500. Now you can see that again, by default, for the align content, we have stretch. So you can see that we don't need to even add align content stretch. This is already working. So let me just show you that I'm actually being honest with you. So here I'm going to say align content, and we're going to do stretch. And sure enough, nothing changes because this is the default. Now, if we know that this would be a default, then we know that this would be over here flex end. Now we already have a general idea. If we were working with align items, what would the actual flex end do? So this would be the same thing over here with these multiple boxes, with these multiple rows. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say that this is going to be a flex end over here. So now all the boxes are actually placed over here all the way in the bottom. Now if we're going to do start, then we're going to place it all the way to the top. Then we're going to have a space around, space between, and center. And this is going to be very similar to whenever we're dealing with a horizontal justify content. So let's say over here, we're going to say a space around. So now again, you can see that we have evenly distributed, and the first row and the last one is not all the way to the border unless we have a space between. And then this is exactly what's happening. Again, we have distributed. Now, obviously, if we have 2 rows, then there's not going to be even space in between. There's just going to be a space between. But if we would have a 3rd row, then this would be evenly distributed. However, the first one and the last one would be to the top and the bottom accordingly in this case. And then we have a center. So if we're going to go back over here and we're going to say center, then once we save it, now both of our rows are actually going to be placed in center. Once we're done covering the properties that would affect all the children and that are actually applied to a parent container. Now let's look at what is a main axis and what is actually a cross axis. And for this, again, let's just go ahead over here and let's comment out these boxes because we don't need them for now. So now you can see that we have a display flex, and we can also right away get rid of flex wrap and align over here center. So now I can save it, and you can see that we have our typical screen where we have a lot of default properties over here. However, whenever we're talking about main axis and cross axis, if the flex direction is going to be row, so here I'm going to say flex direction and row, and we know that this is by default, but I just wanted to make sure that we can see it over here that our flex direction is row. If is this the case, then main axis over here would be going horizontally over here like this, and the cross axis actually would be going vertically. So it would be going from the top to the bottom. Now, why does it matter? So let's say over here that we're going to have another container. So I'm just going to grab this container over here, and I'm going to copy and paste this. So I'm just going to say that everything is going to be the same. However, I'm going to give it a different class. I'm just going to say over here that this is going to be a container 1. Now I'm going to go back over here, and I can also copy and paste these guys over here because I would want very similar container. So I'm just going to say over here that this is going to be container 1. Now what would be the difference? Well, first of all, let's do this container 800 pixels. Then let's do a flex direction of column. And then also let's add a border. So let's say over here that this should be a border, and let's say 5 pixels solid blue over here. Now let's save it. And now you can see that we have two containers. One is going to be flex direction row, and the other one is going to be flex direction column. Now one of them over here, you can see that this is going to be going horizontally, and this is going to be going vertically. Now, why do we care about the main axis being horizontal with a flex direction row and cross axis being vertical over here? Now, if I'm going to go back over here, and if I would want to place them in the center. So let's say for a horizontal one, so flex direction row, what I would want to say, I would say justify content over here. This is going to be the center. Now this places it in the center, and then we're going to have align items, and we're also going to place it in the center. So everything is working nice and dandy. There's no problems whatsoever. Now let's imagine that we also want to do the same thing over here with these containers. You can see that we have 800 pixels over here, and I would want to place them in the center. Now we already know first things first, and we're just going to say over here that what we would want is have them vertically in the center. We're going to say align items, and we're going to say center over here. And notice over here they are in the center. However, they're probably not in the center where you actually want it. And the reason for that is with a flex direction row, the main axis over here and a cross axis is going like this. Now again, I'm repeating this for 4th time probably, and you're probably annoyed. However, I just want to kind of hit this home. So this would be the main axis, and this is the cross axis. However, whenever we have a flex direction of column, it's actually opposite. This is actually the main axis, and this is the cross axis. So now, whatever we have align items over here in the center, we're actually dealing as a horizontal property. And over here, if we're going to justify content, and over here we're going to say center, now this is going to place it in vertically. Now, especially in the beginning, just pay attention what you're using as a direction. Now, obviously, again, I'm going to repeat this also for a 6th time. This would be the default one, but just pay attention to the fact that if you have a flex direction column for aligning, you would need to use actually different properties for horizontal or whether it's vertical. Now, like I said before, the first set of properties that we're going to look at, they were actually affecting all the children simultaneously. When we went to a parent, created a property, and then added a value. So now we're going to start looking at a properties and the values and how they can actually affect the individual container. So let's say over here that we have a container. It has a height of 400, display obviously flex, then we have a flex direction row, and this is going to be the last one, align item start. So we know that they're going to be aligned in start. What if I would go back over here and I would say that I would want box, and I know that this is going to be box number 3. So it's going to say over here number 3, and I would want actually align self, and now I have again choices. Well, all I would have to do is over here write as a value for align self. We're just going to say over here flex n. So now you can see what happens. Even though rest of the children get this align over here item start, if we're going to go to each and individual box over here or element or child, in this case, we can just say over here align self, and then we can choose. So let's say for this guy, we're going to say flex n. Now, obviously, I can go back over here and I can just copy this. And for the box number 4, let's say let's do a stretch. Now, I'm not going to do all of them. We already remember whatever we'll be using with align items. So let's say we're just going to look at 2 of them right now. So let's say this guy over here would be a stretch one. Now, it doesn't really matter what I have here as align item start. I can also have over here center. What I'm saying over here is that we can individually change the values, even though we already applied over here to the actual parent container. So again, the question probably would be where you would use this. And again, the answer would be whenever you're dealing with a different elements. So the image obviously is going to be displayed different than text. The actual text is going to be displayed different than a button. So in a lot of cases, what you're going to do is you're going to start experimenting with these values in order to get a better look. Now let's look at a order property in the Flexbox. And again, there's something that's happening by default. And by default, all the children have over here order of 0. So you can see over here that if the order for all of them is for 0, then whatever we set up over here in HTML stays over here once we even apply the Flexbox. However, if I know that this one is 0, this one is 0, then this and this and this also 0, what if I would want to move this guy up front? So what if I would actually need to do? Well, first things first, let's say that we would want to go to a box number 3 over here, and I'm just going to say like this. I'm going to say order, and we can actually have a order which would be a negative. So let's say over here I'm going to have an order, and I'm just going to set it as -1. Now, sure enough, what's happening is this guy has a order of -1, and now we have 0, 0, 0, 0 over here. Now, obviously, the same way, if I would want to move the box all the way to the back, only thing I would need to do is actually change the order of 1. Because if I know that the rest of them are actually 0, now once I have a 1, now this guy is going to be all the way on the back. Now I can, same way, if I change this order, if I'm going to say for the number 1, the order would be 2, this is going to go all the way to the back. So let's say again for a box over here like this, and we're going to say for the box of 1, we would want to actually change the order. So I'm going to say over here, order, order, and we're going to say for the order, we're going to have 2. So once we save it, now actually the box 1 is all the way on the back. Now it works the same way, even if we don't have the flex direction, which would be a default one. So right now, again, I'm going to repeat this, but I'm just going to say flex direction. Right now, we have actually row over here. Now it's going to work the same way if we have a column. So you can see again, normally we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now in this case, we have whatever we set it up in actually this box 3, 4, and 1. And if you notice over here, you can see that we did not change any of the HTML. Now the HTML actually stayed the same over here. But what we did with CSS, we actually changed the order. And that is very neat, since you don't need to change everything in the HTML. You can actually just go to the CSS, and let's say depending on a screen size, you can start changing the order and in essence changing the layout without touching the HTML. The next Flexbox property that we're going to look at is going to be flex grow. Now, as you can see over here, I have 5 elements, and they're sitting over here in the parent container. And we can also see that we have over here an extra space. And of course, the more bigger the screen gets, actually the more space over here there is. Now, so how we can actually fix this? How we can make sure that all these items are actually distributed evenly? Well, for this, we actually have a property called flex grow. Now, again, what we need to remember that by default, all of them, all the children, have a flex grow of 0. This is the reason why we have over here this extra space. So if I'm going to go back over here, and let's say I'm going to uncomment this one out, So I'm going to have these generic boxes. And if I'm going to go back to my CSS, which is going to be in this case in style tags, and if I'm going to say box, because now I'm want to select not just box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually want to select all of them. And if I'm going to go down over here, and if I'm going to say that flex, and we're going to say grow, and let's say we're going to set it to 1. You see what happens. Now, obviously, we still have the wrapping, but if I'm going to go back over here to the bigger screen, you can see that it's actually filling out nicely. Now, we can also just get rid of some boxes just so you can see it maybe better. So if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm going to delete everything starting from the 4th, or let's just comment it out over here like this, now you can see that I have 3 boxes, and all of them have a flex grow property value of 1. So it doesn't matter of how big the screen size over here gets. They're all going to be growing as much as they can to actually fill this container in over here. Now, like you saw before, it doesn't mean that just because you're going to have extra boxes, you still have a wrapping problem. However, in this case, you will not have this extra space. Now, you're not limited actually to just working with them like this. When you have a flex grow and you apply to all of them, you can also do individually. So let's say over here, we're going to say for the box number 1, because let's say that this is going to be the most important one. We're going to say like this. We're going to say flex, and then we're going to do flex grow, and let's do 6 over here. Now, obviously, on a small screen, it's not going to be literally 6 times bigger than the rest of them, because this is going to be flex grow 1, and this is going to be flex grow 1. However, the more bigger screen there is going to be, it's going to make sure that there's actually value of this 6 bigger than this one. So this would be, as much as it can, it's going to try to make actually 6 times bigger. So basically everything is going to be proportional, but you can make boxes depending on a flex grow. So let's say for box number 2, I would decide that, you know what, I don't want it to be 1. So let's say over here, I'm going to say that this is going to be flex grow, and let's say 2 over here. So I'm going to do flex grow. I'm going to set it to 2. So now this guy is going to be still bigger than 3, but less than 1, because 1 obviously has a bigger value right now. The 1 has 6. So this is how we can actually space them out within the parent container. And we can do it to all of them if we have this type of class, because this is still going to work. Or we can go individually to each and every child. Similarly, the same way how we have a flex grow, we also have a flex shrink. So let's say over here that we have 3 boxes. So we have 1, 2, 3 over here. And let's say that for the box number 2, I think that it's actually going to look better if it's going to be 300 pixels. So I'm going to say over here that the width is going to be 300 pixels. So I save it, and sure enough, everything is fine. However, you can see that as I'm actually shrinking my screen size over here, you can see that it's definitely not 300 pixels. It's actually getting smaller and smaller. And if I'm going to add a few more elements over here, so if I'm going to go back down over here where we have our buttons, and we're just going to first uncomment these ones out, and let's still have the generic ones over here, you can see that right now for sure it's not 300 pixels. And the reason for that is because, again, the same way by default, the same how we have a flex grow set for actually 0, so it is not growing. Actually, the flex shrink is set to 1, which means that it's always going to shrink. The element is actually going to shrink in order to fit them all in a box. So the way I would actually do this, I would say over here width is going to be 300 pixels. And then I'm going to say over here flex and shrink. And we're going to set shrink to actually 0. Because like I said, by default is actually 1. So once I save it, you can see that now my second box is actually not shrinking. So it's fine over here. You can see the screen size obviously allows this 300 pixels. However, as I'm going down over here, you can see that it's shrinking over here, the rest of the elements, but we cannot do it anymore. It's actually pushing them out over here. So obviously we know how to fix this. We know that we have a flex wrap. So we do flex wrap, and now you can see that it now starts wrapping. Now, one thing we need to understand is that this does not mean that if we're going to say for a flex shrink, that the rest of them is basically going to shrink to 0. What we need to understand that we have over here some default values over here. We have a padding, we have a font size over here. So Flexbox is going to keep the whatever values we're setting over here. Now it's going to try to actually fit them all in if it can. And if it's not, if we have a flex wrap, it's going to wrap. However, the flex shrink allows us to actually change the value to whatever we would want and keep it that way by setting a flex shrink of, let's say, 0 over here. So the rest of the elements are going to be shrinking to fit the screen, but this guy is always going to stay the same. Now that we have covered flex grow and flex shrink, let's look at a flex basis and actual flex properties. So what would be a flex basis? So like you see again over here, we haven't changed anything. We have 5 boxes. And if I'm going to go down over here, and if I'm going to select the class of the box, and if I'm going to write a flex basis, and now I'm going to add some value, because by default, this one is set to auto. So like I said, over here, this doesn't care about what actually we're setting. It cares about what we have set over here in the main CSS. So if we have set over here as a padding and over here font size with a flex basis auto, this pretty much is not going to disturb it. However, if I'm going to change from the auto, which would be the default, and let's say over here, I'm going to say 100 pixels over here. So what happens right now, each and every box is not going to go below 100 pixels. So basically with a flex basis, we're saying do whatever you want, Flexbox, but do not make these over here a element, in which case these would be all 5 of them because we didn't select individually. Do not make this element less than 100 pixels. Now, obviously over here, we are wrapping to the new line because we actually added this property. So if we would take away this property, we would again be scrolling all the way to the right. However, this is what the flex basis is for. So here again, we can change the value and we can say over here, and this is going to be 200. So now the boxes, if they were going to be able to fit, then there's going to be multiple in a row. However, the moment it's not going to be able to fit, it's actually going to push to the new line. Now we can also combine this, let's say flex basis over here, and combine this with a flex grow. So I'm going to say for all the boxes, flex grow. So we're going to set this actually to equal to 1 over here, and then we're going to say like this. So if you have a space, then the box grow wherever you need to go. However, if you do not have the space, do not get less than 200. Now, obviously, I can change this one, let's say, to more dramatic of 100. So now in this case, what I'm going to say that the moment you're going to go to the new line, which in this case, you can see that we're going in one line, but the moment we get to the smaller screen size, we do not fit this number 5 anymore because this is not going to go below 100 pixels. So it creates a new line, but since it has over here this flex grow, it just takes up the whole line. So if I'm going to go keep on shrinking the screen, now you can see that I have 2 of them. Now in this case, now they have to divide over here this one line. However, unless they were going to get less than 100 over here, which we do not want less than 100, then they were going to wrap again to the new line. So the moment that happens, again 5 goes down to the new line, and we have formed 3 lines altogether. Now similarly, the way we had flex basis and flex grow and flex shrink, like everything in CSS, we actually have a shortcut. So I don't need to write flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis. I can just write flex, and then I need to write the values. So here, let me just delete this one over here and save this. So for the box, I'm going to say flex, which is going to be the shortcut. Now the first value in shortcut flex property actually reflects to the grow. Now we know that by default, grow is actually set to 0. So the boxes are not growing. So we can change it around here, and we can say that this is going to be the 1. So boxes should be growing. Now we also know that by default, the flex shrink, which is going to make sure that the boxes shrink, is set to 1. So as the screen size actually gets smaller, the boxes do shrink and do get smaller. So we can change it over here and set it to 0. We can just say grow as much as you have to, whatever the space is, but then do not shrink. And now we're just going to add the bases. So let's say over here, I'm going to say like something like 100 pixels. So now all of them are going to be 100 pixels. They're not going to shrink less than 100 pixels. However, if they were going to have a space, they will going to actually grow as much as they have to. So here, whatever we're increasing in the screen size, the Flexbox is all the time trying to fit in the children and the parent element. And again, since I set the flex over here, the last flex basis value to 1, they're never going to get less than 1. Now, obviously, we need to include over here this flex wrap. Now, the question probably would be, why would we want to use a flex basis over here instead of, let's say, adding our own height and width? Well, you see over here that we have two options over here. We have a flex direction of row and flex direction of column. Now, even if we change this direction to the flex direction actually of row from the column, or the column from the row, this still keeps this flex basis, meaning the Flexbox understands what kind of assignments it needs to do, what kind of properties the Flexbox has. So what I'm trying to say is that even though you're trying to switch from one screen to another one, let's say in a mobile you would have a column layout and then you're going to be switching actually to a row layout, you can still keep your flex basis, and the Flexbox is going to understand how it needs to style it depending on the screen size, because you still have over here this one that reflects to the actual Flexbox instead of going to the main CSS and start changing the styles. Once we have covered Flexbox tutorial, now it would be a good time to put Flexbox to use. And what we're going to do over here, we're going to build our portfolio project. As you can see over here, we're going to start with a navbar, and over here this is going to be the logo, and these are actually going to be links. However, if we're going to make over here our screen size smaller, you can see that we're going to have a button, and with the help of a button, we're going to be able to actually display the links in column layout. Now, once we're done with a navbar, then over here, this is going to be our header section where we're going to have a title. Now, next section is going to be an about section. So over here, we're going to have a picture, and over here, these are going to be 2 links. Then these are going to be services section. So we're going to use a font awesome over here, and we're going to just create 6 of them. Now, once we're done with a services section, then the next one is going to be over here, numbers section. And after the numbers section, we're actually going to have a project section. So in the project section, again, we're going to have pictures. And as we're hovering over here, you can see that our link icon is going to be displayed. Now, once we're done with a project section, this is going to be the contact section. We're going to place 3 forms over here and a button in the bottom. And the last one is going to be footer, where we're just going to place a social icons. So let's start working, and let's start building with a Flexbox. Now, before we can start working on the project, the first thing we would need to do would be a setup. Now, for those of you who do not want to do the setup together with me, under the resources for this video, there's going to be a setup folder where everything is already going to be completed. Now, for those of you who actually want to follow along, first things first, in the desktop, you can see over here, we're going to create a folder, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be a Flexbox folder. So I'm just going to say over here rename, and we're going to call this a Flexbox folder. So let's say over here that Flexbox, and let's say portfolio over here. Now, once I have over here my folder, you can see over here that this is going to be my text editor, and I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to say open folder, and over here in the desktop, I would want to open up this Flexbox portfolio. Now, once I open up the file over here, first things first, let's create a index.html. So I'm going to say over here index.html. Then I will gonna create a main CSS. So I'm gonna call this main CSS. And then after that, we're gonna say that this is gonna be script.js. So I'm gonna say over here, this is gonna be script.js. So this is gonna be for the navbar to actually make the button dynamic. Now, once we have created all the files, we can go ahead over here, and in the index.html, we can use the fact that VS Code by default has a emmet. So I'm going to type over here exclamation mark and press tab. And right away, I have my HTML skeleton ready for me. Over here, let's just change a title. And let's say over here that this title is actually going to be portfolio. So portfolio. Now, once I have the actual portfolio ready, now I would want to have a live preview. So for this, we have few options. We can either use a shortcut, or here, if I just right click it, you can see that I have my live server. So here, I'm just going to say open up live server. Now, before that, I'm actually going to open up new window for my Chrome over here, and just make it a little bit smaller. So once over here I have open up in the live server, you can see that right now this is going to be my portfolio. And what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to place them side by side. So I'm going to maximize this guy, and I'm just going to pull it over here like this. And just to have more space, what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to, for now, close it out right away, my sidebar over here. So once we are done with a setup in the text editor, now let's have a look at what things we would need. Now, first of all, you can see that over here, this is going to be my images folder. And over here, you can see that I already have all the images. So again, if you're going to be downloading with a setup folder, you're right away going to have all these images. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag over here this folder. Now, once I have my images in my Flexbox portfolio, next, what I would want is actually Font Awesome. So you can see that I am in the Font Awesome website. And if we're going to go over here and if we're going to click how to use, you can see that right away we have getting started on the web. Now over here, this is going to be the CDN. So basically, if I'm going to go to these SVG with JS, because this is what I would like to use instead of web fonts. And if you're just going to copy this script and place it in your title tags, you're right away going to have a Font Awesome. Now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to download the Font Awesome. If we're going to scroll down over here, and you can see that we have a download Font Awesome. And once I click, you can see that it's downloading. And over here, you can see that help to understand. And over here, this is basically going to explain what we need. So over here, because I want to work with SVG, the only thing we need is all JS file. So what I'm going to say over here is I'm going to go to my folder, whatever I created over here, and I'm just going to open up this folder, and then I'm going to look in the JS for all JS. So this is going to be the file that I need. So the only thing that I need is over here, just drag this file to my folder. So once we're done with a Font Awesome, next we would need a Google Fonts. So we're going to say over here that we would want Google Fonts. So we're going to open up Google Fonts. Now in the Google Fonts, I'm actually going to search for a Roboto Mono. So here I'm going to type Roboto, and you can see over here, this is going to be my Roboto Mono. Now once I click over here, you can see that it's going to show me what type of font is over here, but I would want over here just to include it. So we're going to press over here to that plus sign, and you can see that it has family selected. So again, we have few options how we can work over here. We can either use the link, or we can actually do the import. Now we are actually going to do the import. So in our CSS, in our main CSS, we'd actually need to copy and paste this. Now, before we do that, we're going to do a customize, and we're just going to add some stuff. So here we're going to say that we would want a bold and 700 and italic. So once we have over here, we're going to go back to embed, and we're just going to say that we would want to import this. So I'm just going to copy and paste this line. I'm going to say copy. I'm going to go back over here to my text editor. Now, once in my text editor, I'm going to open up actually my main CSS and just copy and paste over here my import. And if you noticed over here, we also need a font family. So for this, we're going to use a body. So I'm going to say over here for the body, and we're just going to use this font family Roboto Mono space. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and over here right now we have in our body our font family. So if we're going to go back to the index HTML, and if we're going to say something like hello world, so let's type it over here like this. Let's say that we would want a heading 1, and once we have the heading 1, then we're going to say over here that this is going to be hello world over here. And once I type over here my heading 1, you can see that nothing's changed. And the reason why nothing has changed, because we actually need to link the main CSS over here, then we need to link the actual script JS, and then we also need to make sure that we have the actual Font Awesome. So let's go back to the index HTML, and over here we're going to say that we would want first to link, and we would want to link the main CSS. So first we're going to link the main CSS. And once you can see that once I link the main CSS, now you can see that I have my Roboto fonts working. Then after that, let's right away add also the script JS. So we're going to say over here script, so script, and for the source, we're going to say that this is going to be script JS. Now we're not going to test this right now, whether we have actually linked it correctly, but as you can see, that if the names match, everything should be working fine. And after that, let's check whether we have font awesome. And over here, I'm going to say that there's going to be a span element. And within the span element, what I would want is an I element with the classes of FAS, FA home over here, and let's do FA and 5X over here. So again, as you can see, that Emmet is right away suggesting what I'm going to have. So I press tab, save it over here, and you can see that I don't have my font awesome. Now we're going to go up over here, and we're going to say that we would want to include font awesome. Now before that, let's actually add a comment. Let's say that this is going to be the main CSS over here. And for this comment, we're just going to say font and awesome over here. Now, once I have the comment, let's actually link it. Now for this, since this is a JavaScript file, we also need to do the script over here. So we're going to say over here that this is going to be script. And for the source this time, we're just going to say that this is going to be all JS. So once you save it, you can see over here that now our font awesome is working. And the last thing that I would want to show you is where we can get images. Now, like I said, for those of you who are going to be actually downloading the file, the setup folder, you'll right away have the images. But over here, I just like a lot a pixels where you can get a high quality and free images over here. So once we are done with our setup, we can actually start working on our portfolio project. Now that the setup has been completed, let's actually start creating our first section, which is going to be over here, the nav, and over here, this would be the banner. So I'm going to go to my actual text editor over here. We're going to get rid of these heading ones and font awesome over here. We don't need them right now. And as you can see that as I'm going to be working, the live preview is going to be shown over here. And once we're going to want to check something over here on the bigger screen, what I'm going to do is I already opened up in the browser my file over here. So going back to the actual text editor, what we're going to say over here that we would want to start working with the body. Now in the body, the first thing we're going to create is going to be a header element with a class of header. So I'm going to say over here header, and also right away dot, and the class is also going to be header. Now once in the header, now let's create our first comment, and we're going to say over here first child. And this is going to mean that this is going to be our first Flexbox child. And this is just going to help us with our first section to actually understand how we're manipulating with a Flexbox. Now for the first child, we're going to say that this is going to be the nav over here. And you can see that actually I don't need the comments over here. I just need an element. So I'm going to say over here nav with a class of nav. Now I'm not going to write anything right now, any kind of links, any logo in a nav, because I want to make it less confusing. So we're just going to leave the nav blank for now, and we're going to actually work on the banner. Now, before we write the banner, we're going to write that this is going to be second child. And again, what this means is that we're going to create this header as a Flexbox parent. And over here, this is going to be our first child, and this is going to be our second child. Now, for the second child, we're going to say that this is going to be a div. And you know what? Let's not call it div. Let's actually say that this is going to be the section. So let's say over here, this is going to be section with a class of banner. Now, what I would want over here in this banner? Well, first, I would want a banner container. And basically what banner container is going to be is going to hold all this over here. So we're going to say over here that this is going to be a comment. So I'm going to call this banner container. And over here, we're going to say that this is actually going to be a div. And we're going to say that this is going to be div with a class of banner. And over here, this is going to be two underlines over here. And we're going to say that this is going to be container. So two / and then there's going to be container. Now within the banner container, what we're going to have? Well, first we're going to have a heading 1 with, again, a class of banner. And again, this is going to be two underscores. And then this is going to be title. Now, what kind of text we're going to say? Well, you can see over here that we have a I am clever techie. So we're going to write over here that this is going to be a I am clever, and we're going to call this techie. Now, once we have over here heading 1, then we're just going to press tab, and over here you can see that now we have our heading 1. Now, after that, we would want a banner jobs. So if this was a banner title, next one is going to be a heading 1, which is going to have a class of banner jobs. So we'll call this heading 1. Then we're going to have banner, 2 underscores again, and jobs. Now, what we would want inside over here, well, first we would want a developer over here. This is going to be our text. Then we're going to have a span. Now, within the span, we're going to place a font awesome. So this is going to be FAS, FA, and we're going to call this angle over here, angle, double, and we're going to call this right over here. So angle, double, right. So once over here, you can see that I save it. I am clever techie, and this is going to be our font awesome. So I need to go back over here. I'm going to press Control space. I get back my Emmet, press tab, and sure enough, now you can see that this is going to be my angle right. Now after that, we would want one more icon and 2 times more text. So here we're going to call this a designer over here. Now we're going to have a designer, and now again we're going to want to copy this span element. So I'm just going to select this span element, then I'm going to go over here, and after the actual designer over here, we're going to say that we would want a span over here like this. So we're going to copy and paste this. Now you can see that I'm developer over here. This would be our first font awesome, then would be designer, and next font awesome, and the last one is going to be photographer over here. So once we save it, hopefully I spelled this correctly, and now we are actually done with our HTML, and we can just go ahead over here and say that this is going to be the end of header. So we're going to be end of header over here, and now we can go to the main CSS and actually start styling our first section. Let's go to the main CSS over here, and after the import, the first thing that we would need to write is we're going to select all the elements. Then we're going to say that the margin is going to be 0. The padding is also going to be 0. So basically, we're going to get rid of all the default margins and paddings. And then we're going to say over here, box sizing over here. And for the box sizing, we're going to say border box. And basically, what this does is, if we're going to be applying any kind of margin and padding, this is actually not going to expand the actual element. It's just going to make sure that the element stays the way we actually set up, and the padding is going to be applied on the inside of the element. Now, once we have selected all the elements, then we're going to start working with our root. Now, the reason why we're going to be working with the root, because we're going to be using a CSS variables. Because what this is going to help us is, you can see over here that I selected pretty neutral colors. However, since we're going to be working CSS variables, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to change the colors for the variables, and the colors are going to be changed right away for all the elements where you use the variables. So this gives you a lot of flexibility. Now, if we want to work with a CSS variables, what we need over here is a colon, and then we're going to say over here root. And if we want to create a variable, all we have is over here 2 hyphens over here, and then we're just going to call this light. So this is going to be the name of our variable. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be the color. So I'm going to say hashtag FFF. And basically what this also helps is, as we're working, now we're just going to be able to use this color. So once we have created over here this variable, if I'm going to go, and if we know that we have, let's say over here, nav. So this was our element. And if I'm just going to go back over here, I can just say that for this nav over here, what I would want. Well, since I know that this is going to be the class, I'm going to select it as a class. And let's say over here that background. And let's say that background is not going to be this FFF, but actually we want to say var. So we need to use this keyword. And then over here, once we have 2 hyphens, we can see over here that we have this light one. So we're going to select it over here. But unfortunately, we cannot see anything over here because we haven't placed any kind of elements. So we're going to go back over here. And let's say that in the nav, let's just create some, I don't know, heading ones. And we're going to write over here, hello. And you don't need to do this. I'm just doing it just to show you that the color is actually working. Now you can see that I have the text, but we're not sure whether we have the color over there. So let's go back over here to the main CSS. And like I said, with a variable, you have named the variable, you have used the variable with a var keyword, and the only thing is, let's say that we would want to change the color. So we're going to say F15025 over here. So once I save it, you can see that right away my background actually is orange right now. And this is the nice thing about variables. So you can use it throughout a document, and later on, if you don't think that this is the right color over here, you can just change the color, and it's gonna change the color all over the document. So you don't need to find each and every element that you use this color without a variable, and you can change it much more easier. So we're gonna go back over here, and we're gonna say FFF again. So this is gonna be our background. Then the next one is going to be over here again, the syntax. Then we're going to call this a dark. And for the dark, we're going to say hashtag 181B over here and 24. So this helps me also while I'm recording that I don't actually need to repeat them. So we can just create this variable, and later on we're going to use the variable. Then the next one is going to be the gray one over here. And we're going to say hashtag 8994 and 95 over here. So this is going to be our gray color. Once we save it, then we're going to have an orange color. So there's going to be only two more. So one of them is going to be orange. And for the orange, we're going to have a hashtag. Then we're going to have a F and C5 and 130 over here like this. So this is going to be my orange. And last one is going to be section gray. So we're going to call this over here a section gray. So this is going to be used in one of the sections. And we're going to say over here that this is going to be hashtag F2, F2, F2 over here. So once we save it, now you can see that I have my variables. Now we're going to leave this nav with this background color light over here for now. And we're actually going to move on and start working with an actual banner. So what we're going to say over here is that this is going to be a comment. So this is going to be the nav. And over here, we're going to say end of nav, because we're going to return to this, because I think it's more useful if I show you how we're working with the Flexbox with the whole thing, because there's quite a few rules for the nav itself. And over here, once we have the end of nav, over here, we're going to call this a banner. And this is going to be the end of banner. So end of banner. And maybe what I would want is just grab this body and actually move it all the way on the top. So after the root, actually, we would have this body with a roboto and a monospace. So we have a whole selector, then over here, body, root, and this would be the nav. And what we're going to have in the banner? Well, first, let's say over here, this is going to be the header, because before we actually can work with a banner, let's do a header. I'm sorry, I actually forgot about the element over here. So for the header, we're going to say over here like this. We're going to say we would want to select the header. And then first things first, what I would want is this parent element. You can see this parent element of header. I would want to make it 100% view height. So I would want to make it always 100%. So what I'm going to say over here, min height over here. And this is going to be 100 view heights. So in any screen size and any situation, minimum, this is going to be 100 view heights. Then we're going to say also over here that we would want a background over here, and we would want a URL. Now, for what we would want for the URL would be a header background. So we're going to say over here dot, and then we're going to look for the image folder that we had, and then you can see over here this is going to be a header background image. So once I select it, you can see that I have my background image. Now I also would want to fix over here a few things with an image. So first I'm going to say that I would want a background image in the center. Then I'm going to say that I would want a background image to cover everything. So basically this is going to cover the whole thing. So once I save it, you can see that image is actually in the center and the actual image is covering the whole screen. And after that, we're going to say that we would want it fixed. So as we're going to be scrolling, this is actually going to be a parallax effect. So you can see over here, as I'm scrolling down, you can see that image is staying fixed. So what we're doing over here, we're adding this actual value of fixed. And then over here, once we have a fixed, we're also going to write no repeat. So this is going to make sure that for if the image is not big enough, this is not going to be actually repeating all across the screen. So once we have these properties, what we also would want to do is place an overlay, because this image is actually going to be too bright, because you can see over here that this text, we're actually going to be making it white. So this image is going to be actually too bright. So what we would want is actually make it a little bit lighter. So we're going to say over here that we would want a linear gradient, linear, over here, linear, and we're going to call this linear gradient. So gradient, over here like this. Once we actually type the gradient, now we would want to place a comma, and over here after the gradient, we're going to have a parentheses. So we're going to write over here linear gradient. Just make sure that you place over here this comma. Otherwise, the CSS is going to think that this is one actual value. And over here, what I would want is actual color. So I'm going to say RGBA. And for this, we're going to say 255. And over here, 255, 255. So basically, I'm placing a white color. And I'm going to say over here 0.3. And I think that I said that I would want to make the image darker, but actually we're going to be making lighter. So I'm sorry, but before that I misspoke. So over here, if this is going to be RGBA, so this is going to be my first color, and this is going to be my second color. And if I would just want this linear gradient to cover with the same color, you can see over here that we can have a 255, again 255, and 255 over here, and 0.0 over here. So once I save it, you can see that image right away got lighter. Now, by default, the actual linear gradient has a actual destination. So over here, you can see if I'm going to change this to, let's say 1 over here like this, you can see that linear gradient by default is starting from the top, because this was actually 0.3. And on the bottom, this is actually 1, because I made it completely white. Now, over here, if we type in front of RGBA to the right or to the left, just make sure that you have a comma. We can actually change the direction. So over here, if I'm going to say to the right over here, just make sure that you place the comma. You can see that now this starting over here, and this is going to the right. Now, we are just going to keep the default one. So we're going to go back over here. I'm going to delete this to the right, and we're going to save it over here like this. Now, since I want the whole overlay to be the same value, I'm just going to say over here that both of them are going to be 0.3. So this is how we're going to create over here this image with an overlay. Now after that, also what I would want is I would want to use the fact that this header can be a Flexbox parent. So here we're going to say that this is going to be a display flex over here, and we're going to say flex direction over here. And for the flex direction, we're actually going to have a column. Now, we cannot really see anything right now because, like I said, we needed to pay attention. We have two children over here. We have a Flexbox parent, which is going to be the header in our case. We already made it the parent. And over here, this is going to be our first child. And this is going to be our second child. And now we set it, have it as a Flexbox column over here. So if I'm going to go back over here and actually start working with the banner, we're going to be able to see how we can use the fact that both of them are children. Now for the banner, what I'm going to say over here, banner. So I'm selecting a section with a class of banner. And for this, I'm just going to say over here like this, as a flex child. So this is going to be working as a child. So we're going to make sure that this rule is going to be as a child. So for here, what I'm going to say is going to be flex, and we're going to grow as much as necessary over here. Then we're going to say that we're not going to shrink, and the actual basis is going to be auto over here. Now you can see again, nothing technically changed. However, if I'm going to go back to the nav and over here in the index HTML, I'm going to keep on adding these heading ones. So let's say over here, 3 heading ones. You see what happens. This actual rest of the banner is always going to be making sure that it takes this much of space over here, because we had a flex grow of 1, flex shrink of 0 over here, and the basis was auto. And since this is a layout column, I can make this banner and this nav as much as I want nav in height, and the banner is always going to make sure that it uses the rest of the space. You can see that the flex direction is going to be column, and then over here this guy is going to be using the fact that with a flex, we can always grow as much as we want over here. Now we also can make this banner as a Flexbox parent. So let's say over here that this is going to be a Flexbox parent. So let's say as a parent, and now let's create this display flex for the actual banner. So I'm going to say over here display flex. Then we're going to say justify content, and we would want a content in the center. So we're going to say over here justify content center. Now also what I would want is, once I have a justify content in the center, I also would want a align items over here in the center. So over here we're going to say align items, and over here we're going to say flex, and over here. Now as you can see over here, now my text is actually all the way in the bottom. So this is what I want over here. Now after that, what I would want is give it a dark color. So I'm going to say over here that the color is actually going to be dark. So let's say over here that this is going to be a color var. Now you can see that we can use our variable, and we can just say over here that this is going to be the dark text. Now once we have the dark text, then we would want a text align center over here. So now you can see that our text is actually going to be in the center. And after that, we would want a padding bottom, padding, and you can see not inline end, we would want padding bottom. So padding bottom, and here we're going to say 4 REMs over here. So now we got a little bit of space, and then we're going to use a font weight that we actually got from the Google fonts. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be 700 over here. So this is going to be our font weight. Now, once we have a font weight, now let's actually say that we would want to work with a title. So here, if this was actually a banner, now here we would want to work with a banner title. So here we're going to say that banner title over here. So these are going to be 2 underscores. And over here, what we would want for the banner title. Here we're going to say font size, and this is going to be 4 REMs over here. So this is going to be the bigger text. Then we're going to say that we would want a letter spacing. So let's say over here, letter and spacing. For the letter spacing, we're going to have a 0.1 REMs over here. We're going to save it. Now we're going to have a bigger spacing. Margin bottom, we're going to do a 0.5 REMs. So in this case, we're going to create a more space in the bottom. And then we're going to have a font style over here. And we're going to say that this is going to be italic over here. So this is going to be italic text. And then let's do last one, text over here, transform, and let's do capitalize over here. So let's make every first letter actually the capital letter. And after that, we would want the actual banner jobs. So this is going to be over here, the actual div that we created over here, the heading 1, the banner jobs. So let's go back over here, and let's say that this is going to be banner and 2 underscores jobs. Now for the banner jobs, again, we would want the same letter spacing, so 0.15 REMs over here. And then we're going to have the same text transform, text over here, transform, and let's do again capitalize. Here let's do a font size of 1.5 REMs over here, 1.5 REMs, and then let's do a color of light. So color var over here, and let's do again, this is going to be the light color. So now you can see that I am clever techie, and over here this is going to be the actual banner jobs. Now the actual nav bar we're going to be doing at the very end, because like I said, there's going to be quite a few CSS and the actual HTML. So I don't want to scare you yet away, but successfully we have our first section. So if I'm going to go back over here where I have it in the browser, and if we're going to refresh, you can see over here that this is going to be our first section. And as you can see that this is taking exactly 100 view heights. So exactly 100% of the actual screen. And you can see that we have the background. This is going to be the title. And over here, this is going to be our subtitle. And now we're ready to move on and start working on the next section. Next section we're going to be building is going to be over here about section. So here you can see that we're going to have one side where there's going to be an image. Then over here, this is going to be the title. Then this is going to be some text. And over here, we're going to have 2 links. So we're going to go back over here to our HTML. And we're just going to write over here that this is going to be the end of header. And then we're going to have a about section over here. And what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to copy and paste it over here. And we're going to write end of about section. Now in the about section, we're going to start first with a section element. Now this section element is actually going to have a class of about. And over here, first things first, we're going to have a div that's going to have a class of underscore about center. And this is going to be used for centering. So here we're going to say div and about underscore, and over here we're going to have center. Now in this div, we're going to have 2 actual articles. So I'm going to say over here, this is going to be the first article with a class of about img over here. And in this article, the actual image is going to be placed. So here we're going to say image. Now what we would want for the image source, we're going to say that we would want a image header BCG. So we're going to use basically the same source. And we also would want a class. So I'm going to say about, then we're going to have image. And again, this is going to be to underscores photo. So this is going to be a class we're going to be applying to our image. And like I said, this is going to be the same image. So this is going to be header BCG over here. And you can see that this image is going to be taking up a lot of space right now. But don't worry, we're actually going to fix this with a CSS. So once we have our first article, now we would want is a about info. So again, we're going to have an article. This is going to have a class. And for the class, we're going to say about info over here. Now in the about info, first we're going to have a container. And in the container, we're going to have a title. Then we're going to have a text. And then we're going to have a link. So here we're going to say div with a class about info. And over here, this is going to be 2 underscores container. So basically, this container is going to be wrapper for everything we're replacing over here inside. Now in the container, we're going to have a heading 1 with an about info over here, underscore, underscore, and this is going to be title. Now over here, we're going to say about, and over here, me. Again, we're going to plus over here tab, and over here, this should be over here, our heading 1. Now, once we have a heading 1, then let's actually create a paragraph. And over here for the paragraph, again, we're going to have a class about info over here, underscore, underscore text. And over here, let's place some text over here. And over, let's say like 20 words. So lorem, over here, 20, press tab. And sure enough, now you can see that this is going to be my text. And last but not least, let's create our links. Now for the links, I actually would want to create a separate div that's going to hold both links. However, I still want to place it within the about container. So don't place it outside of about container. So let's say over here, this is going to be about info over here, about info. And for this, we're going to say underscore, underscore links. So this is going to be the class for this div. And then we're going to have an href over here. So link, and then we're going to have a class. So there's going to be actually 2 classes. So first one is going to be about info over here, single, and then we're going to say link. So this is going to be our first class. And the second class is actually going to be dark btn. So this is going to be our second class. And let's say that for the href, we're just going to have a hashtag over here. But however, for the text, we would want to write that this is going to be hire me over here, hire me. And then let's copy and paste the same button over here. However, we're just going to change a few things around over here. We're going to say that this is going to be a download over here, CV over here like this. And then also what we would want is we would want to change from this dark button. We're going to say that this is going to be a light button. So light btn over here. So once we save it, we have our HTML for the about section. And now we can go ahead and actually start styling this section. Let's go ahead to the main CSS and actually start styling. So as you can see over here, we have the end of banner. And now what we would want is the about section. So we're going to say over here, about section over here, copy and paste this line over here. And then we're going to say end of about section. Now, what kind of rules we would want over here? Well, the first thing that we actually would want over here is we would actually want to create one more variable. So I'm going to go all the way where I have my variables. And as you can see over here, I have this section gray. And I'm actually going to create one more where I'm going to say a section white. So I'm going to say over here section white. Now I'm going to use the same color over here as this light. However, in this case, if you want to change the colors for the section, they are actually separate. And if you want to change the colors that you're actually working with fonts, they're also separate. So let's just first create this variable. And once we have created the variable, let's right away use it. So we're going to say over here that we would want to target about section. And over here, we would want a padding, 2 REMs for this section. And over here, we're going to say 0. So now I can see that we created a padding of top bottom. Now let's create a little bit more space over here. And next, what I would want is actually have the background for the about section. So the background, again, we're going to say the same thing, var keyword over here. And then we would want section and section white over here like this. So once we save it, now we have our background as a section white. Now after that, what I would want is actually work with about center. So this was the centering div. So we'll say over here, class about over here and center. So this is going to be 2 underscore center. And over here, what I would want is a max width. So I'm going to say that it never gets bigger than 90 view widths over here. And also what I would want is I would want to place it in the center. So once I save it, I would want to place it in the center. So over here, I'm going to say over here like this, I'm going to say margin 2 REMs top bottom. So this is going to be the margin for the top bottom. And over here, we're going to say auto. So this is going to make sure that we have the margin on top bottom, but the fact that we're also always in the center. Now after that, let's actually fix the photo. So let's say over here that we would want is a about img over here. And over here, we're going to say photo. So 2 underscores and photo. And over here for the photo, first we would want a display block over here. And then we would want a width over here of 100%. So in this case, what happens now, you can see that our image actually fits perfectly. Like not like before where actually it was stretching and actually making us scroll. And also let's do right away a height of 100 over here percent like this. And the last one we're going to say is going to be position relative. So we're going to say over here position and we're going to do relative. So once we have the about photo, let's actually come back a little bit and let's say about actual image. So this is going to be the parent container. We would want for this about image also some margins and some positioning. So we're going to say over here about img, and here we're going to say margin 3 REMs and 0. So top bottom over here for this div is going to be 3 REMs, and then we're going to want a position relative over here like this. So this is what we're going to do over here for the parent container. Now, last thing that I would want over here is to work over here. You see that we have this dark underline over here. So you can see that there's going to be a dark div that's going to be placed somewhere around the image. So how do we do this? Well, over here, we're going to go and we're going to create a new rule. So we're going to say about, and over here, img, so the parent container for the image. And then over here, we're going to write before. So now once we have this rule, then over here, we're going to say content, and we're going to say that this is just going to be an empty content. Then we would want is a background. And for this, we're going to say that this is going to be var, and then we're going to use the gray one. So over here, we're going to say that this is going to be the gray one. So once I save it, nothing is actually showing. Now let's do a width of 100%. Then let's do a height also of 100% over here like this. And then we would want is a position and absolute over here like this. So we're going to have a position absolute, but we still cannot see anything. Now let's do a bottom over here, bottom, and bottom is going to be negative 10 pixels over here. So now you can see that it's popping over here from the bottom. And then we would want is a left over here of negative 10 pixels also. So now you can see that we're making this effect over here. Now, obviously, we can place whatever we would want over here. Let's say we could place an image or whatever we would want. But important thing to remember is that if we're using this before and we're setting it as absolute, so whatever we want to place it, so over here with this about image, we need to make sure that this is going to be relative. So that's going to be the most important thing. So now what we are done with an about image, let's start working with an about info. So again, let's do the same thing. Let's just create more room over here. And let's say that we would want about info. And what we would want for about info. And again, we would want margin 3 rems and 0. And the reason why we're actually selecting this is because we want over here to have more margins in between. So basically, we would want to make sure that in the small screen, they're not bumping into each other. So here you can see that if we have over here about info and over here about image, so we'll make sure that they're actually stacked on top of each other. However, there's still some space in between. So once we have selected class about info, let's do about and info, and for the about info title. So first let's do a title. Now what we would want for the title? Well, first let's do a font size 3 rems over here like this. So this is going to be bigger text. Then we're going to have a text transform, and for the text transform we're going to have a capitalize, and let's do also a letter spacing 0.5 rem. And last but not least, let's actually set a background. So the background, we're just going to say over here like this, background. Then we're going to have a URL, and over here again we're going to go to the images, so quotation marks dot, we're going to find images, and then we would want is a title background svg over here. So we're going to save this, and you can see that now it's spanning all across. And the only thing we need to write is over here no repeat. So now this image is going to be only here in the front. Now once we're done with a title, let's actually work with this text over here. So this is going to be the next one. So about info over here, info, and over here we're going to say text. Now what we would want for the text? Well, first let's make it a color, and again let's use var, and let's use gray over here. So let's gray variable is going to be for the text. Now once we have the text gray, let's do a line height. For the line height, we're going to say 1.5 over here. So the line height is going to be bigger. Font size is going to be 1.2 rems over here. And also we would want a margin. And for the margin, again, we would want the same thing, 3 rems and 0. So this is going to make sure that we have bigger margin over here. And then let's actually style the links that we have. So here again, let's create more space over here, and let's actually style the links. Now for the link, remember we had a class of about over here, info, and then we had a single link over here. So this was our class. So what we would want, first of all, we would want display and inline block. So this is going to be our first rule, because what we would want is we would want to actually apply the margins and paddings, and this is going to be a better way. So text decoration, we're going to say none over here. So we're going to get rid of this annoying underline. Then we're going to do a padding. Top bottom is going to be 1.5 rems, and you know what? No, actually it's going to be 0.5 rems, and this is going to be 1 rem. So left and right is going to be 1. After that, we would want is a font size over here, font size. And let's do font size 1.5 rems. Now once we have the font size, let's do letter spacing 0.2 rems. And after letter spacing, again, text transform, capitalize, and border. Let's do a border, and this is going to be dark. So I'm going to say over here, this is going to be 3 pixels, solid. And let's do var. And again, we're going to use this variable. So I'm going to say over here, and this is going to be the dark. So now we can see that we have this dark border over here. And then after that, we would want is a transition, because what I would want is, as you can see, as I'm hovering over, the change is happening over time. As you can see that we can always make the hover effect. However, the hover effect doesn't happen over time. So what we want to do is we would want is a transition. And over here for the transition, we have a couple of things. First of all, what kind of transition? Well, we're going to say we're here all, because we would want all transitions to be affected by this. Then this is going to be the time, how long it's going to take. And over here, this is going to be the linear. So this is going to be how this transition is taking effect, whether it's happening linearly, and there's going to be another option, let's say ease in and out, or ease in, and we're just going to pick a linear. So basically, once it's going to start working, it's going to all the way to the end without changing. And over here, we're going to say margin, and we're going to do a margin right, and the margin right is going to be 1 rems. So I'm going to say 1 rems over here like this. So this is going to be our margin right. Now, also remember we had this dark button over here and the light button. Remember these guys? So now we're going to style the actual colors. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to say that for this dark BTN, we would want first a background, and the background is going to be dark. So we're going to say over here dark. Now once we save it, you can see the dark background over here, and the color is going to be light. So we're going to say over here var, and this is going to be the light. So we save it. So the color is dark, but the color is actually white. And also let's do right away a hover effect. So dark BTN hover. So as we're hovering over this button, what should happen? Well, first let's say this is going to be a background, and the background is going to be the other way. So we're going to have a background is going to be light. So light over here like this, and the actual color is going to be dark. So basically it's opposite. So var, and over here this is going to be dark over here like this. So what happens as I'm hovering, you can see that the change is happening over time. Now if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm just going to comment this out and save it, you can see that it's going to happen right away. And this is not what we want, because with this transition we can actually manipulate how long we would want. So let's say over here I can write 10 seconds if I would want to. In this case I'm going to write 1, but just understand that this gives you way more options over here. Now once we have the dark button, we also would need a light button. So the same way over here we're going to say that this is going to be light BTN, and for this guy we're actually going to be working the other way around. So first of all, we're going to say that the color is going to be dark. So for the color, we're going to say that we would want dark. So var and dark. Over here, dark. So this is going to be a dark color for this light button. And then once we're hovering, then we basically would want the opposite way. We would want the background to be dark and the actual color to be light. So basically something like this. So what we can do over here, we can just copy and paste this. Then we're going to say for the light BTN hover, again, as we're hovering, we would want these rules. So if I'm going to go back over here, you can see that as I'm hovering, now you can see that it's changing from light to dark. And over here, this is changing from dark to white. And the last thing that we would want is actually apply media screen. Because for now, if we're going to go over here to our recording, and if we're going to refresh over here, you can see that this is how they're going to be displaying. Doesn't matter of the screen size over here. And this is not what we would want. At a certain screen size, we would want to use a Flexbox and actually place them side by side over here like this. So as you can see, once I make it big enough, my screen, you can see they're actually going to be side by side. So let's go back over here and let's say that this is going to be the rule at media over here, screen. And for this, we're going to say and over here, we would want a min width. So here we're going to say min width. And what would be this min width over here? Well, this min width, what we would want is going to be 992 pixels. So this is where the change is actually going to happen. Now over here, what we would want over, I would want first the about center. So if you remember over here, this was a class, this about center class, which is actually a parent. It is a parent for the article about image and also the parent for about info. So both of these are children. So I'm going to go back over here to the main CSS and we're going to say about center over here, and we would want to display flex over here. This is going to be the first one, and also we would want to have justify content, and we're going to say space between. And this is going to make sure that since we're going to be applying our own paddings in between, this is going to make sure that they're always as far away from each other as possible. So here we can have a space between. Now, once we have the about center, then we would want to work with children. And for the children, it's actually going to be very easy. We're going to say about, and over here, this is going to be the info. So this is going to be the first article child. And over here, we would want a about and image. So this is going to be the second Flexbox child over here. And what we would want for both of them? Well, first we would want is a flex. And the flex is going to be like this. They're not going to grow. So the grow is going to be 0. They're not going to shrink. So the shrink is going to be 0. And here we're going to write calc. So we're going to be calculating. So we're making use of CSS calc function. And over here, we can write the values we would want. So over here, I'm going to say 50%. So I would want them to be 50%. However, I'm going to actually subtract 1 rem. And this 1 rem is actually going to be spaced in between them. So they're going to be 50%. However, we're going to make sure that there is some distance in between them. And over here, that's why we're using the space between, because this is going to make sure that they're actually placed as far away from each other. Now, whenever you're working with calc, just be careful to actually have spaces in between this subtraction sign. Otherwise, if you're not going to have it, the CSS is not going to render properly. So let's say over here, we're going to save this, and let's go to portfolio record, and let's check it out what we have. So this is what we have over here. Now, the last thing that I would want is, depending on the image, there's going to be cases where you would want actually this text to go lower. So how are we going to do this? Well, remember, whenever we were going to working in index.html, we had this wrapper. We had this about info container that we had over here. Now, we also had a parent of about info. So the reason for placing everything in this wrapper was then I can use a Flexbox properties again for this about info. And what we need to remember that for this about info, there's only one child. There's this one about info container. So if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm going to say that I would want for the about info, and what I would want for it. First, I'm going to say display, and we're going to do flex over here like this. And once we actually have display flex, over here, we're going to say align items, and we're going to say just flex end. So basically, if the image is actually going to be way bigger, which is in our case, it's not the case, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that you can see that right now, my about is sitting over here. So if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm actually going to comment this out, so let's say that this is not going to exist. Let's see actually how this is going to look like. So once I refresh, you can see that my text is on top. But if I'm using this about info over here like this, you can see that it is displaying flex. But since it has only one child, it just basically moves this over here, this container, all the way to the bottom with all the text inside over here. So what we're going to say over here is we're going to go to back to main CSS, save it, and once we refresh, sure enough, you can see over here that now my text is actually in the bottom. The next section we're going to be building is going to be services section. So here we were going to create our first title. And actually, we're going to reuse our title in the next sections over here, like for this project. And over here, we're going to place a font awesome icon. Then this is going to be text. Then there's going to be some other text. And they're also going to make some hover effect. So as you can see, as I'm hovering over each and every service, you can see that we're going to have a box with some box shadow. So let's go ahead and let's go to our index.html. And in the index.html, we need to go where is the about section ends over here. And let's say that this is going to be a services section. So let's say over here, comment, services, and let's say section over here. Again, copy and paste this over here. And let's say end of services section. Now what we would want over here in this section. Well, first we're going to say section with a class of services over here. Now also in this section, we're going to have, like I said, a title. So section title. So this is going to be that we're going to create and reuse. So over here, let's say section. Over here, section title. Now again, let's create another comment. And we're going to say end of section title. Now what we would want in the section title, it's actually going to be very simple. We're going to have a div with a class of section title over here. And inside this div, we're going to have a heading 1 section title, and over here we're going to be 2 underscores name over here. And for the name, in this case, we're going to say services, just like the name of our section. Now over here again, let me get back my Emmet once I save it. And if I scroll down over here, you can see that I have my services title. Now, once I have the section title done, next, I would actually want is the actual services. Now, what I would want for the services first is the same as with an about. I'm going to want a services center. So this is going to serve over here as a centering tool. So we're going to say over here div with a class of services center. And over here within the div, we're going to start placing our services. Now, first, let's say that this is going to be single service over here. So first and foremost, we're going to create each and every service. But however, it's going to just make easier whenever we're copying, pasting, if we're going to have over here these comments, because then we're going to make sure that we know where we are copying, pasting over here. So service. So these are going to be our 2 comments. Now over here, we're going to place first an article. Now in this article, we would want is a class. So this class is going to be like this. So we're going to say class, then we're going to say services. So services and services single service. So 2 over here underscores single over here service. So this is going to be the class. And over here, once we'll have this article over here, now I would want a few things. Well, first, what I would want is the icon. So again, let me just create a little bit more room over here. And let's say over here that this is going to be the icon. So I'm going to say over here, this is going to be the div with a class of what? Services, over here 2 underscores, single, over here service, and then we're going to call this icon over here. So this is going to be my class. And what I would want in this div is going to be I element with a class of FAS. Then we're going to have FA and calendar over here check. So this is going to be my font awesome icon. So if I scroll down over here, this is going to be my font awesome icon. Now after this div, I would want text. So I'm going to say over here heading 2. Then we're going to have a services, 2 underscores, and single service, and we're going to call this title over here. So this is going to be single service title. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be punctual over here like this. So we can save it. And sure enough, this is going to be my text over here. And then after that, we would want the actual paragraph. So here, and the last element that we're adding is going to be paragraph with a class of services. Over here, 2 underscores, single service, over here service, and let's just say over here text. And over here again, let's do something like 10 words over here like this. Let's save it, and sure enough, now I can see that this is going to be my text. Now what I would want over here is I would want to create 6 of them. So I'm going to go back over here to the top, and I'm going to select this 1 service, and I'm just going to copy and paste this 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And over here, what we would need is actually change the values for the font awesome. So if the first one was calendar check, if we see over here, the next one is going to be the rocket. So let's say, where is the first one? So this was a first service over here. This was our first single service. Now, if we would want not a calendar check, but actually we would want is a rocket. So I'm going to go back over here, and we're going to write that this is going to be a rocket. Then we're going to say also we're going to change the actual name over here. So we're going to say that this is not going to be punctual. This is actually going to be creativity over here. So we save this, we keep on going, we find the next one. The next one is actually going to be a mobile over here. So we're going to find where is our calendar check. And we're going to go over here, and we're going to say that this is not going to be calendar check, but this is going to be mobile over here. And we can just check it whether we have it. Sure enough, you can see that this is going to be mobile. And over here, the text is also going to change. And the text actually is going to say that this is going to be responsive design. So responsive, or here design, or here like this. Now, once we have the mobile, the next one is going to be the cogs, and we're going to call this a hard work. Over here, we're going to say that this is going to be hard work. So cogs for the icon, and over here for the text, we're going to say hard work. So over here like this. So we're going to say hard work over here. Now, once we save this, then we have development and photography. So for the development, we're going to have a laptop. So over here, let's again delete this calendar check. Let's say over here laptop, here like this. And for the laptop, we're going to say that this is going to be development. Over here like this, development. And once we have the development, then the last one is going to be photography. So here like this, we're going to say this is going to be photography. Photography over here. And over here, we're going to have a camera. So the last one is going to be camera. Camera. And once we have over here our index.html, now we're ready to go to the main CSS and start style. Once we're done with an HTML, let's go to the main CSS and let's actually styling this section. So here you can see that this would be the end of about section. Then we're going to create 2 comments of section title. So this is going to be the generic title that we're working on. And over here, let's say that this is going to be the end of section title. And then also let's create a services. So services section. And over here, let's do the same thing. Let's say that this is going to be end of services section. Now over here for the about section, what we would want. Well, over here for the section title, the first one would be, like I said, a generic one. So here we're going to say section title. So this was the class. And over here, we're going to say just text align center over here. So now our text is in the center. And then let's actually style the section title name. So section over here, title. And for the title, what we would want is title name. So 2 underscores name. Now let's do font size. First of all, font size. And let's say that this is going to be 4 REMs. So this is going to be the actual size of the title. Then we'll have a letter spacing 0.5 rem over here. And let's do a background over here like this. And for the background, we're going to do the same thing what we did with an about section. So first we're going to find where's the image folder. And then we're going to have a title BCG. So this is going to be our background. Then we're going to say over here that the background should be in the center over here. So we're going to actually save it. And then we're going to say again, no repeat. So here you can see that now our background is going to be in the center and it's going to be no repeat. After that, we will have a text transform of capitalize, text transform and capitalize. And after that, we're going to have a font weight over here of 700 over here like this. We're going to say 700. And then after that, we're going to have font style italic. So font over here style, and that one is going to be italic over here like this. So now we have italic fonts. Now once we're actually done with a section title, now let's do a services section over here. And for the first services section rule, we're going to have a services. So this was our actual class. And let's do a background. And for the background, let's do var over here. And let's do section gray over here. So this is going to be our dark section. So this is why we're using the variable, because later on you can actually change the color to whatever you would want over here. And after that, we would want is a padding, 3 REMs and 0. So going to be padding top, bottom over here, and left and right 0. And the reason left and right is 0, because over here we're going to say services over here and center. And for the center now, we're going to do again the max width over here. In this case, this is going to be 90 view widths over here. So this is going to be always like this. And then we're going to say over here also margin 2 REMs and auto over here. So once I save it, you can see that now I have 2 REMs top bottom. But over here, this is going to be always in the center with 90 view widths. So once we have the actual services center, let's do a single service. So this is the actual article that's holding all the items over here. So over here, we're going to say services. Then this is going to be a single service over here. So this is going to be the whole article that's holding it. And over here, we're going to do again margin 2 REMs auto over here. Then we're going to do a text align center. Then we're going to have a transition, because like I said before, what we're going to have is as I'm hovering, you can see that we have this box, this white background. However, again, I want this change to happen over time. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say transition. For transition is going to be all. So for the whole transitions, whatever transitions we're doing, for whatever properties we're changing the values, let's do 0.5 seconds. And again, you know what? Let's do ease. And as you can see over here, we have ease, ease in and out, ease out. So again, this would be the way the actual transition is taking place. So let's say over here, ease in is going to be the case. Now, once I have this, let's also do a padding. And for the padding, let's do, again, maybe let's do 2 REMs. And over here, we're going to say 0. So we don't want any padding on left and right. However, we want top and bottom. So once we have the actual single service, let's do a services single service. And now let's do hover. So as we're hovering, what should happen? Well, first, what we're going to say over here is that the background is going to be light. So we're going to say var, and over here we're going to use the light. So this is going to be a light background. So as I'm hovering, you can see what happens. You can see that the background is becoming light. Now I also would want a little bit of box shadow. So here we're going to say box shadow, and then we're going to have for first value is going to be 0. Then for the second one, we're going to say 15 pixels. 20 pixels is going to be for the blur, and now we would want a color. So for the color, let's do the black one. So 0, 0, 0, and let's do 0.1. So over here like this. So once we're going to go back over here, you can see that now I have my box shadow over here like this. So this is going to be my box shadow that I created. Once we have our box shadow rolling, the next one is going to be single service icon. So here we're going to say again services. Then we're going to have 2 underscores, single, over here service, and then we're going to say icon. So this is going to be the icon we're actually working on. Now what we would want over here is over here font size, and let's do 3 REMs over here. So this is going to be our big icon. And once we add the font size for the icon of 3 REM, you can see that there's some kind of mistake over here, because you can see that I have over here this with the big letters. So let me go back over here, and if I'm going to find over here this creativity, you can see that it has stayed over here within the div. So I would need, in this case, just move it outside the div, and then everything is going to be working correctly. So let's go back to the main CSS and keep on styling. Now once we're done with an icon, next one is going to be service title. So again, this is going to be services over here. Then we're going to have a single service, and then instead of icon over here, we're going to write title. So this is what we're going to be styling right now. And for the title, we're going to say text over here, transform, and this is going to be uppercase. Now once we have it a uppercase, then again, let's do font weight, and let's do again 700 over here like this. Now once we save it, next one is going to be margin, and we're going to say over here margin top, and for the margin top we're going to do 1 REMs over here. So this is going to be margin top, and then we also would want a margin bottom. So let's write over here margin bottom, and for the margin bottom, and we're also going to do 1 REM. So top bottom is going to be 1 REM, and then let's do letter spacing, which is going to be in our case 0.2 REMs over here like this. So this is going to be the spacing that we're actually doing. And the last thing is going to be actually service text. So let's say over here services, and services single service, and again, instead of icon, I'm going to say over here text. So this is what the class would be. And here we're going to write width 80% over here like this. So now you can see that my actual paragraph is going to be 80%. However, you could see that it's aligning all the way to the left. So what I would want is margin 0 and auto over here like this. And what I also would want to do is, let's say that I would want a text align, and I'm going to say left. So I'm going to say text align and left. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to overwrite. So if this guy was, everything was in the center, what I would want, just for the sake of it, just place it all the way over here in the left. And also let's do a line height. So let's say over here line height, and let's say 1.5, and then after that letter spacing and 0.2 REMs over here like this. So this is how our actual text would look like. And now what's left to do is actually go ahead and work with a different screen size. Because obviously right now, again, the same as how we had with an about section. Everything looks like this, doesn't matter on a screen size. So what we would want is use the Flexbox to actually place them side by side. So let's say over here again, this is going to be the services section. Let me create some more room over here, and let's write some more rules over here. So the first one is going to be a media. So we're going to have media screen, and you can see that it's suggesting me the wrong thing over here, screen over here, and over here we're going to say and min over here width, and what we would want for the min width is going to be 768 pixels. So this is going to be the actual screen where we would want to start working. And over here, again, we're going to use a services center, which is a parent right now for all of them. And we're going to say over here, display flex over here like this. So once we reach 768, this is going to be display flex. Now let's go ahead and let's actually see how it's going to look like. So this is going to be our portfolio. Once we refresh, and now you can see that all of them are lined up over here like this. Now, obviously, this is not what we would want. So we're going to first say over here like this. So first, we're going to say that we would want it to wrap. So flex, wrap, wrap. So if it needs to wrap, it has to wrap. And also, we're going to say right away, justify content. And let's do space between. Because, again, we're going to be creating our own paddings and margins in between. So we would want them to actually be placed as far away from each other. So here, since we have the parent and we applied already rules. Now, what was our single service? So this was our child. So we had services, single service over here. So this was our child. So and for all of them, what I'm going to say is the same thing. We're going to say over here flex, then we're going to say 0. So don't grow, don't shrink. And over here, we're going to say calc. And for the calculation, we're going to say 50% minus again. And over here, we're going to use 0.5 REMs. Over here like this. So once I save it, and if I'm going to go back over here, and if we're going to refresh, you can see that this is how it's going to look like. Starting from over here, 768 pixels, now they're going to be lined up over here like this. And since there is 6 elements over here like this, now obviously there's going to be 2 apiece. However, if I'm going to go to the smaller screen, once I reach the smaller screen over here like this, now it's going to be the single item over here. Now obviously, I also want for the bigger screen actually change it around a little bit. So once I reach 992, I actually want single service to be a little bit different. So here we're going to say media, and we're going to say screen, and over here min, again width. So min width, and what we would want for the min width. So for the min width of 992 over here pixels, I would want again services single service. Because what we need to understand is that we already have the display flex, flex wrap, justify content starting from 768. So this is not going to change. What I would want to change over here is this guy, because I would want it for 768 to have one layout, and then once I reach 992, I would want this layout. So all I have to do is actually going to copy and paste this, and over here I copy. Then I'm going to paste this, and I'm going to change the values around. So instead of 50%, I'm going to write over here 33.333 over here like this. And let's actually make over here also this padding or this margin in between them a little bit smaller. So let's say 0.25 over here like this. So let's go back over here. And once I refresh, you can see that first I have my single over here service. Then once I make the bigger screen, now there's 2 of them side by side. And once I'm going to reach 992, there's actually going to be 3 of them. So this is how we can make the actual use of using the Flexbox and aligning the actual Flexbox children according to the actual screen. The next section we're going to be creating is going to be the numbers section. So here we're going to have a background. The background image is going to be fixed. Then this is going to be the title. And over here, again, these are going to be font awesome with some text over here. So let's go back to the index.html. Let's go to the bottom where the end of services section. And over here again, create a comment. So this would be numbers section over here. Copy and paste this. And over here, let me fix my typo over here. This is going to be section. And once we have the actual numbers section comments. Now let's actually place over here this section element. So here maybe let's write end of numbers section over here, and now let's place the section element. So here for the numbers, let's start with a again section with a class of numbers, and let's say numbers over here, press tab, and now we have our numbers section. And over here, let's do a section title, the one that we created before. So what I'm going to say over here, I would want to find a section title. Now, once I found the actual section title, I'm just going to go up over here and select along with the comments. Then I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm going to go down where I finished actually working in the numbers section and just copy and paste this. Now, obviously over here, what I would want to change is the value. So this is not going to be services. This is going to be actually numbers. And once I scroll down in my page over here, you can see that right now I have right away my title. And this is how we're making use of the fact that we can create the title one time, and then we don't need to actually repeat it. We can just change the value for the name over here. So once I have a title, now we're going to have again the same thing as numbers center. So this is going to be again a wrapper for all our actual font awesomes and everything. So here we're going to say numbers and center. Okay, so this is going to be the div that we're going to use for centering. And after that, again, what I would want is over here a single number. So single number over here, copy and paste, and over here we're going to write end of single number. Now what I would want over here in this single number. So first of all, let's do an article. The article is actually going to have a class over here, and the class is going to be numbers. Then we're going to have two underscores, single over here, number. So this is going to be our single element. Now once we have over here this article, then let's place a font awesome icon. Now in this case, we're not going to use a div, we're actually going to use a span. So we're going to say numbers, two underscores again, and this is going to be single number over here, number, and we're going to call this icon over here. So this is going to be the icon. Now in the span, we're going to have a I element, FAS, and FA users over here. Let's save it over here. Let me get back my Emmet. Let's save it over here. And sure enough, over here, you can see that we have our icon. Now, after we have the span ready, the next one is actually going to be our number. So we're going to say over here, heading 1, again, the class, numbers, over here, single. Then we're going to say number, over here, text, over here. So this is going to be our text. Now, once I press the tab, and in heading 1, we're going to write this is going to be 100. And after that, the last one that we're going to have over here, this is going to be the text. So here we're going to say heading 2 with a class of, again, numbers. And we're going to say single, number, title over here. So this is going to be our title. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be happy clients over here. Let's save it. And now again, we know what we need to do. So we're going to check where is our single number. We're going to copy and paste over here like this. And you can see that I went one too much over here. So let me go back over here. And let's say that I would want to copy to the end of where is my title. And let's just copy and paste this 1, 2, 3 over here. And obviously, again, the same thing. Now I'm just going to have to change the values. So if I'm going to go up over here, and you can see that this was my start. So let's change this first, this users. So I'm going to change this users, and we're going to say over here thumbs, over here up. So this is going to be my first icon that I'm changing. So once I save it, check it out over here. Now we have our thumbs up. So here we're also going to have a different value. I'm going to say over here that this is going to be 245, and this is going to be projects. So here we're going to say this is going to be, instead of happy clients, we're going to call this a project. Now after that, the next one is going to be the lines of code. So we're going to call this an edit. So here we're going to say this is going to be an edit over here. And for the edit, what we would want is going to be lines of code. So let's say over here like this, maybe, I don't know, some kind of value like this. And we're going to call this lines of code over here. And the last one is going to be trophy. And trophy is going to be awards of 5. So here, what we would need to use to change over here this users to a trophy over here. Once we save it, then we're going to have, let's say 5 of them, or let's say 6 of them. And over here, we're going to call this awards. And once we're done over here with writing awards, we're ready to jump to CSS and actually start styling our numbers section. Once we have added our HTML, let's go ahead and let's actually apply the CSS. So let's do the same thing. Let's go to the main CSS. Now we're going to go all the way to the bottom. We're going to see that we have the end of services section over here. So what we're going to create is a numbers section over here. Let's copy and paste this. And over here, let's say end of numbers section. Now over here, the first one we're going to have is a background. So we're going to say over here that this is going to be a numbers or section. And then we would want maybe first, let's do a padding. 3 REMs is going to be top bottom. Then the 0 is going to be left and right. Then let's do a background over here. And let's do a background of URL. And let's say over here that we would want, again, images. So we would want to tackle the images. And then we're going to have a numbers background over here. So let's say over here, this is going to be our numbers background. Now what we would want, again, for this numbers, we would want center over here. Then we're going to have /cover. And also we would want a no repeat over here. And let's say fixed. So pretty much all the same things that we already had before. So see over here, whenever we were dealing with this guy with a banner, we're basically repeating this one over here. Now you can see that over here, in this case, what I would want is I would want to make this actually darker because my text is going to be white. So what I'm going to say over here is, again, I'm going to go to the actual beginning over here. And before the URL, I'm going to place a comma. And now again, we're going to write a linear gradient. And again, we're going to use a black color. So let's say over here, RGBA 000.3 over here like this. Then I'm going to place a comma, RGBA 000.3 over here like this. Let's save it. And you can see that this actually got darker. Now the last one is going to be the actual color. So we're going to say over here color and var because we're using a variable. And we're going to say over here light. So now the actual color right away turned right. Now the next one is going to be numbers center. So this is going to be again for a centering. So for the numbers center, we're going to say again max width over here, max width. And in this case, we're going to do 95%. So this should never be bigger than 95%. And you know what? Not actually percent. This was actually view width over here, view width. And then we're going to say that this is going to be margin 2 REMs and auto over here like this. So then basically we're placing it in the center. And now let's start working with a single number. So numbers over here, and we're going to have a single number over here. So what we would want for the single number. So basically for the article that contains all the icon over here, number and text, what we would want over here. Well, first we would want text align center. So this is going to be the first one. And then we're going to do margin 2 REMs and 0 over here. So top and bottom, this is actually going to be a margin 2 REMs. And over here, this is going to be the 0. Now you can see that something is not working. So let me actually go ahead and check in the index.html whether I actually spelled it correctly. So here you can see that this is numbers. And instead of numbers, I actually wrote a nubmers. So in this case, what we would want is actually select this article and change this over here. So let's write that this is going to be the correct one, numbers. Then also we would want to do it over here. So this is going to be the numbers. And this is also going to be the numbers over here. And let me check whether I have it down below also, or this was actually the first one. So again, you see over here, we're going to write numbers instead. And once we save it, you can see that everything is working correctly. So once we have fixed my mistake, let's go ahead and let's actually continue. So here, again, what we have is a numbers and we have a single number. And we have a single number icon over here. So this was the class that we had before. And we're going to say font size 3 REMs over here like this. And then we'll have a single number text. So here we're going to say numbers, again, single number. And instead of icon, we can just write over here that this is going to be the text. Now here we're going to say font size. This is going to be 2 REMs. Then we're going to have a letter spacing of 0.5 rems. And then we're going to have a margin of 0.5 top bottom rem, and left and right is going to be 0. So this is what we're doing with a numbers text. Now after the numbers text, then we have a title over here. So what we would want for the title. So again, we're going to have numbers, single number, and instead of text, this is going to be title over here. So for the title, we would just want text transform uppercase over here like this, and then letter spacing, let's do 0.5 to rems over here like this. So this is going to be our transformation. Now after that, as always, what we would want is start working with the media, because right now they're going to be displayed like this. So obviously we want them side by side, and depending on the actual screen size, we also would want the count differently. So here, let's do a media screen, and over here we're going to say min width over here like this, and for the min width we're going to say 576. So this is going to be for the smaller screen. So what we would want is we would want numbers over here, and then we're going to say center. So this is going to be the parent container, and over here we're going to say display flex. So first we would want this container, you see over here, the one that contains all the numbers over here. You can see that I scrolled up and I actually needed a numbers. So you see over here this div. Now we're working with this parent container. So first we're going to say display flex, then we're going to say flex wrap, and the wrap is going to be wrapping. So each time it gets too big for the actual screen, this is actually going to be wrapping. And then also we're going to have justify content, space between. Again, we're doing this because we're going to be adding our own margins in between. So once we have worked with the numbers center, then let's work with the single number. So here we're going to find a single number, and what we would want over here. Well, here we're going to say flex 0, 0. So don't grow, don't shrink over here. And let's do again calc, and let's do 50% like we did before. So basically half the screen on a small screen size. Now here, let's do 5 point rems over here like this. So this is going to be 576. So if we're going to go back to my recording, and if I'm going to refresh it, this is going to be in my numbers. And as you can see, as the screen size goes bigger, this stays 2 columns side by side. Now I also want to do the same thing. As the screen gets to the 992 pixels, I want to actually all 4 of them over here. So what I can say over here is I can just select this whole media screen over here like this, select it, copy and paste it, and just change some values around over here. So first of all, let's just change this one to 992 over here. Then we're going to get rid of this number center because we don't need to repeat it, because this is all going to stay the same because it's starting already from 576. Now also over here you can see that we have a single number. Now only thing we need to do over here is change the value. So instead of 50%, we're going to do 25% over here. So now there's going to be 4 columns over here. So once we save this over here, I'm going to go back over here, refresh. And once I'm going to have a 992 pixel screen, check it out what we have. Now we have actually 4 numbers side by side. And this is how we can work with a numbers section. The next section we're going to be making is going to be a project section. So here again, we're going to have a title. And then over here, these are going to be our projects. And over here, you can see that we're going to use the Flexbox actually for the layout. But we're also going to have few other CSS effects that are actually going to have create an overlay. And over here, we're going to have a massive icon here in the center. And as we're hovering, you can see that the color is actually changing for the icon. So let's go ahead to the index.html and let's start working on this section. So the first one is going to be, again, as always, comments. So we're going to say over here projects, over here section. And once we have the opening comment, then also we're going to have the end of project section. Now, once we have the comments, now we would need a section over here with a class of projects over here. So this is going to be our class name, projects. And once we have a section ready to go, now we would want a title. So here we're going to find where is a section title over here, the closest one. And over here, once we grab the section title, let's go ahead and again, let's copy and paste this over here. And let's just scroll all the way down to where we were working and just place it in our section. So here, this is the project. So we're going to copy and paste this over here. And then we're going to go to the services. And we're going to change this services. And we're going to say that this is going to be projects. So here, we're going to say projects. So once we save it, if I scroll down over here, you can see that I have my project title over here ready to go. Now, once I have my title, now the next one is going to be creating the project. So here again, we're going to start with a div project over here, center. So we're going to have 2 underscores, center. Then within the center, now we would want to create a single project. So we're going to say single project. And over here, we're going to copy and paste this line. And over here, we're going to say end of single project. Now, once we have our first comments, now let's place the actual project. So for that, let's create a article. So we're going to say over here, article. And for the article, we would want a class. And the class is going to be projects, 2 underscores, and single project over here. So this is going to be our article. Now, within the article, what we're going to have is going to be the image over here. And for the image, we're also going to have a class, which is going to be projects over here, 2 underscores, and single project, and over here, img. So this is going to be our image. Now, once we have the image, now we would need a source. So we're going to have an image, and over here, we're just going to say this is going to be portfolio 0. And also for the alternative, we're just going to write that this is going to be portfolio, over here like this. And once we actually have our image, now next, I would want a font awesome icon over here. So that's going to be the icon that's actually hovering. So as we're hovering over here, now we would want to place this icon. So what we're going to do over here, we're going to see where the image ends. Then we're going to have a link over here. And we're going to say that this link is going to have a class of projects over here, 2 underscores. Then we're going to have a single project. And we're going to call this an icon over here like this. And within this href over here, now what I would want is actually, you can see that I'm going to place a hashtag. And now we're going to go inside this link, and we're actually going to create a font awesome icon. So here we're going to say FAS, and we're going to have FA search over here. We're going to press tab, we're going to save it. And if I go down over here, you can see that I have the image and I have the font awesome icon. Now, obviously the image is way too big over here. So what we would need to do is we're going to go to the actual CSS and style this. However, before we do this, I'm just going to grab the single project. I'm going to go down to the end of single project, and I'm going to copy and paste this actually 7 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over here. And now I just need to change the numbers. So you can see over here that I have a portfolio over here. And for the portfolio, I believe I have 7 over here like this. So if I'm going to scroll down all the way here, you can see that this is going to be my 7. And over here, if I'm going to change this actually to 6, so portfolio 6 over here, then we have again portfolio of 5. Then we're going to have an image again of 4. So basically, the only thing we're doing, we're just changing the numbers over here. So if it was portfolio 4, now this is going to be 3. And then we have 2, 1. So 3. And then we're going to have 2. And the last one is going to be over here 1. So over here, we're going to have 1. And then we're going to save this. And let's check it out what we have. So far we have our 8 projects. And now that we're done with our HTML, we're ready to go to CSS and start styling this section. So let's go ahead to a main CSS over here. And let's go all the way to the bottom where we have the end of numbers section. And then once we have the end of numbers, over here, we're going to say that this is going to be a project over here. And right away, let's copy and paste this. I'm going to say end of project. Now, once we have created these comments over here, now let's actually create this section. So I'm just going to create a little bit more space. And over here, we're going to say first projects. So we're going to be targeting the whole section over here. And we're going to say first, as always, we're going to have a padding, top, bottom 3 REMs, and over here 0. So top, bottom is going to be 3, and left and right is going to be 0. And we're also going to do a background, and we're going to use var for this, and this is going to be the light color over here. So we're going to use a light background. And once we have set the background for the whole section, then we would want to center everything. And for that, we have the div. So we're going to say projects over here and to underscore center. So this is going to be used for horizontal centering. And over here, I'm going to say max width. So he cannot exceed certain width. And this width is going to be 90 view widths. And over here, we're going to have a margin to REMs. So that's going to be top, bottom. And over here, we're going to say auto over here like this. So we save this over here. And you can see right now that I have my margin in between also. Now, once we have our project center done, now let's actually work with a single project. So here we're going to have a class of project. Then over here, we're going to have a project to underscores. And over here, this is going to be single project. So this is going to be the single article that's holding the actual photo and the font awesome icon. And over here, we're going to start like this. We're going to say first that there's going to be margin on the top over here, 1 REMs, and auto over here on the sides. And you know what? Actually, let's do 2 REMs over here. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just creating some space in between them when the actual screen size is smaller. And also what I would want is I would want a position, and this would be a position relative. Because again, what we're going to do over here with this overlay, we're going to use this before over here, and we're going to set it as an absolute. So if we want to do this, we need to set this guy over here, the actual container, as a relative. So this is what we're doing over here. Now, once we're done with an actual container, now let's do a project over here, single project, and over here we're going to target IMG. So what we would want for the image? Well, first we would want a display, and we're going to say block. Then we would want a width over here of 100. So this is going to make sure that our image always fits over here nicely. And also we would want a border radius. So here we're going to say border and radius. And we're going to create this border radius just so we have some rounded edges over here. So once I save it, you can see that now we have our rounded edges. Now once we're done with an image, let's actually create a overlay. So like I said, for this we're going to be using before. So here we're going to write projects over here, single project. And over here what we're going to have is a colon, and we're going to write over here before. So basically what we're doing is we're creating something that's not in the HTML. And what we're going to do is we're going to position an absolute, and we'll use the fact that the container, the actual parent container, has the position relative over here. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say that this is going to be a content over here of content of nothing, pretty much over here. So this is going to be the empty content. Then we're going to do a background. For the background, we're going to do a var, and we're going to do a dark one over here like this. Then once we have the background, now we would need to set the width and height. So for the width and the height, I'm going to say 100% over here. And also for the height, I'm going to set 100% over here like this. So basically, this is going to be taking up the whole background of the container. Now, once we have the width and a height, now what we want is a position over here. And for the position, what I would want is actually absolute, like I said, because actually I would want to play it like this. So you can see right now that basically this before is covering the whole thing, because now we have the position absolute. However, we would want to do a few things over here. Well, first, what we're going to say over here is that this is going to be transform, and this is going to be scale over here. So you can imagine that this scale for the transform is actually going to be multiplying the actual height and the width of an element. So over here, if we're going to have a scale of 1.2, this is going to be actually multiplying and making it bigger. However, if we're going to go with the scale of 0 over here, you can see that it basically disappears. And the way we're going to get this effect is we're going to change the scale as we're hovering. So basically what we're saying is when we're not hovering, scale back to 0. And when we're hovering, scale to whatever you actually were. So here, let's do a also transition, because we would want this change happen over time, not right away. So we're going to say all 1 second ease over here. So this is going to be my transition. So once I have written these properties, now let's do a hover effect over here like this. And for the hover effect, like I said, we're going to have a project, single project before. However, over here, I'm going to have a hover, and then I'm going to have before. So this would be the syntax. So we have project, single project, then we'll hovering, and then we'll have before. And then what we would want to do, like I said, now we would want a transform, and we're just going to say over here scale. And instead of scaling it bigger, we're just going to say scale back to 1 over here. So as I'm hovering, this is actually going to scale over here like this. So this is how it's going to look like. Now also what we would want is actually would want to change the opacity, because you can see that it's totally dark, and this is not something that we would want. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say that originally, let's say opacity is going to be something like 0 over here. However, as we are hovering over, we're going to set an opacity to something, I don't know, something like 0.5 over here. So we still can see the image over here like this. So as you can see now, as I'm hovering, my overlay is showing, and we're using the scale over here. You can see that here we made the actual element smaller by actually scaling down to 0. However, as we're hovering, we're scaling back to 1, which would be 100 width and 100 height. And then over here, this would be the opacity. Now, the last thing that I would want to work with is actually going to be the icon. So let me go down over here, and we're going to say projects here. So this is going to be the class. Then over here, this is going to be img, but I'm just going to change from the img to icon over here like this. So what I would want with an icon, and this is actually going to be very similar to what we were doing before. So first, let's do a color over here, and let's do color var over here of light again. So first, let's set it a light color. However, we have a bug, because you can see over here that as I'm selecting the color, nothing is actually changing over here. So I'm going to go back over here to the index.html, and you can see that I have not a project, but I have over here an extra E. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to delete all these E's over here. So let me go back over here and just select everywhere where I have the E and just delete it. And then we're going to be working fine. So here, I'm going to go all the way down to the last one. So this is going to be a project, and this guy over here is also going to be a project. So once I save it, now you can see that I cannot see the icons because the actual color is white. So now we know that everything is working. And once we have set the color of white, now also we would want to have a position, and we're first going to say position absolute. Now we're going to do basically the same thing. Since we know that the container is going to be relative, so this is going to work as a holder for our position absolute. So now we can basically place the icon anywhere we want. So where we would want the icon? Well, we're going to say over here that this is going to be top. Then this is going to be 50%. Then we're going to have a left also 50% over here like this. And once we save it, you can see that this is going to be our little icon over here. And also I would want to make a bigger size. So I'm going to say font size. And for the font size, we're going to say 6 rems over here like this. So once we save it, you can see that our icon is over here. However, as you can see over here, once we actually increase the font size, you can see that our icon has shifted from the center all the way over here. So what we would need to do is actually use the CSS transform and actually use the translate, where we actually would use the actual height and the width of an actual icon and just get rid of it. So we're going to say this is going to be 50% over here translation to the X and 50% of the Y. So basically half of your height and width. So here we're going to write like this. We're going to say transform, and over here this is going to be translate. Negative 50% over here, and also negative 50%. So the first one is going to be X direction, and the second one is going to be Y direction. So now the icon is actually exactly in the center. So once we have done this, now we would want to do two things. So first of all, over here, let's make the opacity of this icon of 0. So now I can see that it's actually going to disappear. Then we're also going to do another transform. So we're going to write over here, and this is going to be scale. So you can see that we can just write the second one, let's say over here in front of it. And we're going to do the same thing like we did over here before. So this is going to be transform scale of 0. So basically, this is not going to be showing, and also the size is going to be 0. And once we have scaled it, the last thing is going to be over here a transition. And for transition, we're going to say all and 1.3 seconds ease over here. So this is going to be our transition. Now, what actually should happen as we're hovering? Well, first of all, what we're going to say is, as we're hovering over the icon, over here, projects, icon, as we're hovering over the actual icon, we would want to change the color. So we're going to say color, var, and over here, gray. Over here, gray. So this is going to be our color. But we're going to be able to see it once we actually do something else over here. So don't worry about it for now. We just have our color fixed. So once we have our color gray, now we would want to have the actual icon appear as we're hovering over this container. So for this, we're going to say a project over here, single project hover. So as we're hovering over the single project, now what we would want is a project and over here icon. So basically I'm saying as I'm hovering over the container, I would want something done to this icon over here. And what I would want for the icon, first I would want a opacity of 1. So if this one was a opacity of 0, so basically it was invisible, now it's 100% visible. And over here, let's change the transform. So let's say over here, we're going to say scale, and we're going to say scale of 1. So pretty much the same thing that we did over here before. So as we're hovering over here, you can see that now I have my icon over here. Now I also would need to do this translate, because if we did the translate originally, you could see that as I'm hovering, this is actually going back down over here. So let's do the same thing with a translate, and we're going to say again negative 50%, and over here negative 50% over here. So if I'm going to go back over here, now you can see that my icon isn't going to appear. Now we also can save a little bit of code, and we can just skip the original one because it's not like we can see it anyway. And now once we save it, you can see that right now my icon is going to be exactly in the center. So once we're actually done with working with an image, now we would want to work with the Flexbox and fix our layout, because you can see over here that we have a 4-column layout over here, and if we're going to go to the smaller screen, then we're going to have a 2-column layout. And by now we already should know how we would need to do this. So here we're going to say media, screen, and we're going to say and min, and over here this is going to be min width. Now for the min width, I'm going to pick this time 768 pixels over here, and I'm going to say project center, so because this is going to be the wrapper that's actually is holding all of them. So if we're going to go back to index.html, you can see that I'm making this guy over here my Flexbox parent, because this is holding all the images over here, all the actual containers. See over here, this is going to be my project center. So if I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to say project center. Now what I would want with it, first would be display flex over here like this. Then I would want a justify content over here. And again, I'm going to say space between over here, because we're going to be setting margin in between them. And we also would want a flex wrap, and we're going to just wrap it just so when we ever get to the smaller screen, it actually wraps to the next line. So this would be the parent container. Now for the single project, what we would want is a project, single project. And over here, we're going to say like this. We're going to say flex 00 over here, calc. So we're going to be calculating again. And again, for the small screen, we're going to have 50%, because we would want to divide the screen in half. Now here, this is going to be REMs over here like this. So we save it, and now we can check it out what we have, where we have a portfolio record. So I'm going to refresh over here, and you can see that there has to be some kind of bug, because right now our layout is not working. So I'm going to go back over here. You can see that I have a calc is actually misspelled. So once I save it, and once I'm going to go back over here and refresh, now you can see that my images are working. Now, once I have set up for 768, now I would want a 4-column layout at a 992. So in this case, we can just grab this media over here, select the whole thing, and just copy and paste this. And over here, let me go back over here and just select the whole thing. So now once we actually copy and paste this, now we're going to write over here 992. So this is going to be the pixels. Then we can just get rid of this whole thing because this is going to stay exactly the same. And over here, we're going to change it to 25% over here. So once I save it and once I refresh it at a 992, you can see that this is going to be my layout. So now I have 4 over here containers side by side. However, if I'm going to go to the smaller image over here, you can see that now there are going to be 2 of them over here like this. And now we're ready to move on to our next section. Next section we're going to be building is actually going to be the contact section. So here we're going to have a name, an email, a text area, and over here this would be a button. So let's go ahead again to the text editor. Let's go to the index HTML over here, and let's find where is actually the end of our last section over here, and if this was the end of the project. And over here we're going to say that this would be a contact section over here, and we're going to create this a end of contact section. Now over here in the section, as always, we're going to start with a section with a class of contact over here. Then what we would want is a title. So here again, we're going to search for a section title. So here we're going to write section title over here, and you can see that again I'm going to find a services title. So here what I'm going to say, I'm going to just copy and paste this again over here, and we're going to go all the way down to our last section over here, and we're just going to copy and paste this title, and then we're just going to change some things around. So here I'm going to say that this is not going to be services, this is actually going to be contact over here. So let's save it, and over here you can see that I have my contact section. Now once we're done with a title, then the next one again is going to be contact over here, center. So again, this is going to be for centering. And then once we have the contact center, then the next one we're going to have a form. So over here we're going to have a form. So we're going to create a form element, but we're just going to delete the action because there's not going to be any action over here. Now in the form, we're going to start with a comment of form header over here. So this is going to be our first 2 inputs over here. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be form header. So it's also going to be a div of contact over here and 2 underscores header over here. So this is going to be the class. And then here, we're going to have an input. Now the input is actually going to be text over here. We're going to leave the name and ID empty over here. Then we're going to have a placeholder and we're going to say name. And also we would want to create a class. So here we're going to say that this is going to be class, contact over here, and name. So this is going to be our class for our input over here. And you can see in the bottom, this is going to be our input. Now also, still in the header, we're going to create another input, which is going to be an email over here. So we're going to put input over here, and then we're going to have an email over here like this. Now I'll do the same thing. We're going to have a placeholder over here. Now this is going to be email. And also let's do a class. So again, for the class over here, we're going to say contact 2 underscores, and this is going to be an email. So this is how we're going to save this. Now after we're done over here with this contact header, now outside this contact header, what I would want is to create a comment form text area over here, text area. And over here, we're going to say that in this text area, we would want a text area. So let's say over here that this is going to be text area element. Now for the name, again, we're just going to leave it like the way it is. ID, we're also not going to touch it. The columns and rows, we're going to leave it like the way it is. Here again, we're going to have placeholder. Here we're going to write how can I, let's say, help you, or like this. And we also would want to write a class. So for the class, we're going to say contact and 2 underscores and text area. So this is going to be our class, text area over here. Now I'm going to save this over here, and we have input, email, and over here text area. And after we are done with the text area, still within the form, we would want to place a button. So I'm gonna go after a text area, and I'm gonna say that this is gonna be a button over here. Then the type of button, this is gonna be a submit over here. This is gonna be a submit button. Then in the button, we're gonna say that there's actually gonna be a font awesome element. So before that, let's create a class. Let's say for the class, this is gonna be contact. Over here 2 underscores btn, and over here in the button, we would want a span with a class of contact, and over here contact on 2 underscores icon over here, and within icon we would want to actually place our actual icon. So here this is going to be IFAS FA, and we're going to call this a plane over here. Now outside the span but still within the button, we're going to say send message over here. So we're going to save it, and you can see that this is not what I want to do. Let me save it over here. Now you can see that I have my input, my email, text area, and a message. And now that we're done with our HTML, we're ready to go and start styling this in the CSS. So let's go to our CSS and actually start styling over here. So I'm going to click on main CSS. You can see that this was our last section. So this would be the end of projects over here. And once we have the end of projects, now over here we would want to create a comment of contact over here, copy and paste the line over here, end of contact. Now for the end of contact, what we would want is we would first want to start with the contact section. So we're going to say over here contact, and over here we're going to do a background. Now for the background, we're going to do var, and over here this is going to be section gray. So over here we're going to say that this would be a section gray. So again, we're not going to be mixing the actual gray color, because just in case you would want to change the colors around. And over here again, let's do the same thing. Let's do a padding. Now this is going to be 3 REMs and 0. So here top bottom is going to be 3, and left and right is going to be 0. Now after we have padding, now I would want a contact over here center. And again, for the centering, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say max width is going to be 80 view widths over here like this. And then we're going to have again another margin. And for the margin, we're going to have 2 REMs, and over here auto over here like this. So now we're actually working with the center. Now you can see over here, now we have more margins. And once we're done with a contact center, now what I would want is to work with this header. Remember that this header is holding the name and holding an email over here. And what we can do is we can create this a header as a Flexbox container. So here we're going to say contact 2 underscores header over here, header. Now for the header, we're going to say first display flex over here like this. So now I can see that they're right away side by side. Then once we have the flex, then we would want a justify content space between over here. So basically push them as far as possible from each other. And then we're going to have a flex wrap. So basically if the screen is going to get too small, we're going to say that we would want to wrap it. And also we would want a margin. Margin would be 2 REMs, and over here 0. So basically still for the whole header, we would want margin, but we would still want these texts and input and email to look like this. So once we have our header, now actually style all the inputs. So here we're going to say first contact name, then we're going to have a contact over here, email. So basically select them all. And the last one is going to be contact and text area over here like this. And what we would want for all of them. Well, over here first we would want a background, and we're going to say background is going to be transparent over here like this. So now I can see that we don't have the background. Then after that we would want a border, and we would want border none. So basically border would disappear. Then we would want a border bottom over here, and for the border bottom we're actually going to have a color. So for the color we're going to have 3 pixels solid, and we're going to say var, and over here in this case this is going to be dark over here like this. So we save it, and you can see that now I have my borders in the bottom. So once we have the borders, Then we would want also a padding. So for the padding is going to be 0.25 REMs and 0 over here. So 0.25 top bottom, left and right 0. Margin is going to be 2 REMs 0 over here. So there's also going to be margin top bottom, but 0 on the sides. And over here font size, we're going to say 1.2 REMs over here. So they're basically bigger font size. So this is how it's going to look like so far. So once we have styled this, now actually work with a contact name and contact email. So here I'm going to say contact, over here 2 underscores, name, and then I also would want a contact and email. So I would want with them, I would want the flex. So we're going to, over here we're going to say flex 00 calc over here, calc, and for the calc we're going to say very easy, we're going to say 50% minus 1 REM. So again, we're making sure that there's going to be room. So basically, as it gets to the bigger screen where it doesn't need to wrap, you can see that it's going to be taking 50%. However, there's going to be this 1 REM in between. So this is how we're going to be working with them. Now, once we have set the contact name and contact email, now we're going to do contact, and over here we're going to say text area. And for text area, we're just going to say very simple. We're going to say width, and the width is actually going to be 100% over here. So once we save it, you can see that all the time it's going to be taking all the space. Now the last one is actually going to be contact button. So here we're going to say that for the contact button, we would want a contact. Then we would want a BTN, so 2 underscores, BTN, and we're going to start over here with background var. Over here, this is going to be dark color over here like this. So this would be the color for the button. Then we would want the actual color, and the color is going to be light. So again, we're going to do a var and light over here. So this is going to be our light color over here. So once we have set the background, then we would want a display of block. So basically, I would want this button all the time to be in the next row. So that's why I'm using the display of block. Then we're going to have a margin of 0 and auto over here, because I actually want to place it in the center. Then we're going to do a padding 0.5 REMs and 1 REM. So we're going to save it, and it's going to look like this. Then we're going to have a margin over here top, and this is going to be 2 REMs. So this is going to be the top margin. Then we can do a font size, and for the font size we're going to have 1.5 REMs over here. So basically this is going to be bigger font. Then let's do text transform, and this is going to be uppercase. So I'm going to make sure that the font is uppercase. Letter spacing, we're going to say 0.5 REMs over here like this. So now our letters have more space in between. And then we're going to do a transition. So here we're going to say a transition. And this is going to be all 0.5 seconds linear. So this is going to be our linear transition. And like I said before, basically what we're doing with transition, we're making sure that the change is happening over time, not right away. Because over here we're going to say a contact. Then we'll have a contact BTN hover. So we're going to have BTN, and over here hover. So over here we're going to say that we would want a background. Now the background is going to be light, so we're going to say var over here light over here. So this is going to be our background. Then we also would want a color. Now the color is actually going to be dark, so over here this is going to be dark color. So we'll save this, check it out what we have. So right now, as you can see, the change is happening as I'm hovering over here. And the last one is actually going to be border. So over here, I'm going to say that there's going to be a border, and we would want basically border color. So if we want over here this border, we would just want a border color. So here we're going to say border color over here like this. And for the border color, we would want a dark color. So I'm going to say var dark over here like this. So again, we need to go back over here and have a dark one. So let's save this, and over here as I'm hovering, you can see that right now I have my dark border. And once we have our border, the last thing, let's do the icon. So here we're gonna just create a little bit more room over here, and you can see that I made actually a mistake. I need to create a curly braces, and over here let's do the icon. So here we're gonna say contact, and let's do icon. So contact icon. So for the icon is gonna be very straightforward. What we're gonna say over here, margin, and we're gonna say margin right is gonna be 0.5 REMs over here. So it's going to create a little bit more room. So let's go ahead and let's actually check it out what we have with the section. So I'm going to go to the portfolio record. We're going to refresh, and this is how our contact section is going to look like. And once we're done with the section, now we can go ahead and start working on the last section before the navbar is going to be the footer. And it's actually going to be very straightforward. As you can see over here, we're going to have a dark background, and we're just going to set them display flex. And this is going to be space around. So let's go ahead to the actual index HTML over here. And in the index HTML, this would be the end of contact. And over here, we're just going to say that this is going to be the footer section. Now, once we have our footer section, then let's create a footer element with a class of footer over here. And inside over here, we're going to say a div with a footer and two underscores. This is going to be icons. So this is actually going to be our div. Now within the div, we're going to have a link over here with a footer over here, single icon. So over here, this is going to be our two underscores single icon. Now here, we're going to have a hashtag. And once we have over here our link, now inside the link, what I would want is place the font awesome. So here, the first one is going to be FAB, FA, Facebook over here. So I save this over here, and we should have our icon over here all the way in the bottom. Now, once we have our first link, the only thing we need to do is actually copy and paste this. So 1, 2, and over here, this is going to be 3. So there's going to be 3 of them. And we're just going to change these values around. So over here, we're going to say this is going to be Twitter. Then over here, the next one is actually going to be Instagram. And after that, over here, we're going to have a LinkedIn. So link over here, LinkedIn. So we're going to save this. And now once we have our icons, let's actually go to the main CSS and start actually styling them. So here we're going to say main CSS. This is going to be the end of contact. Let's actually make a little bit more room. And let's say over here, this is going to be the footer. Now for the footer, first I would want is the actual footer element. Let's do a background. And let's do background var. And in this case, we're not going to create a separate section variable. We're just going to call this over here dark. So here like this. So this is going to be our section. Then also we would want to do a padding, 3 REMs 0 over here. So this is going to be our padding. Now you can see these are going to be our icons. Then we would want to work with footer icons. So this was the div that actually is holding the links to underscores icons. And over here, we're going to do a display flex over here like this. So I can see that all of them are actually together. And then we're going to have a justify content, and we're going to do space and around. So basically, we're going to make sure that there is even amount of actual space in between them. And now we would want a single icon. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be footer, 2 underscores, single icon. So this is going to be the link that we're working in. Now we would want font size 2 REMs over here, so massive font size. Then we would want a color. Now the color is actually going to be light. So here we're going to say that this is going to be light color. Once we save it, now this is how our icons is going to look like. Now let's do a transition. So as we're hovering, we would want some transition. 2 seconds ease over here. And now let's do single icon hover. So let's do footer, single icon, and let's do hover. So as we're hovering, what we would want is actually color change to gray. So I'm going to say color, var, and over here gray. So this is going to be our transition. So as you can see, as I'm hovering, over here, my actual color is changing. And once we're done with a footer, now we can start working with a navbar. Once we are done with rest of the sections, now we have only left a navbar. So here you can see that this is how it's going to look on the big screen. However, once we're going to make it to the small screen, we're going to create a button. And over here, these are going to be our links. So let's go ahead and let's start working on our navbar. So I'm going to go back over here to my index.html. I'm actually going to go all the way to the top because remember, actually, our navbar was our first child over here. Now we have so far these heading ones with a hello, which we actually don't need. If we're going to scroll up over here, you can see that there's nothing over here. However, now we're going to start placing everything. And the good news is that we do not need to do anything with a layout regarding the actual banner because we already set up everything. We already made sure that the banner is going to be pushing as much as it can. So as much as navbar needs a room, we're going to create the room. So first things first, now I would want a navbar header. So I'm going to say nav header. And in the header, we're going to have a logo and a button. So here we're going to say nav 2 underscores header over here. And for the header, what I would want inside, like I said, would be first a logo. So here I'm going to say that this is going to be nav 2 underscores logo over here like this. And for the source, we're going to have image, and image is going to be logo over here. So once I save it, you can see over here now I have my logo. Now also right next to the logo, I would want my button. So I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm going to write span nav 2 underscores btn, and over here we're going to write I, and this is going to be FAR, and then we're going to have FA hand point down. So point, and over here we're going to write down. So once we press the tab over here, now you can see that I have my little icon over here. So this would be with a navbar header over here. So if we have a navbar header, now I would want to create a links. So here I'm going to say right nav links, and over here in the links we're going to create a unordered list with a class of nav links, and over here we're going to start placing a list items. So here we're going to have a list item. Now in the list item there's going to be a link, and over here this is going to have a class nav single over here link. So this is going to be over here my class name, and also over here we're just going to have a text. So over here we're just going to press it, and we're going to write that this is going to be a href, and now we can just copy and paste them. And we know that we need 6 of them, so I would need to copy and paste this 5 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over here. Now the only thing I would need to do is just write over here what kind of links this is. So here I'm going to write that this is going to be a home, then we're going to have an about, then also over here we're just going to have a services over here, and once we save it you can see that our links are over here. Then after the services we're going to have a numbers. Now after the numbers we're actually going to have a project over here. So let me just create it. These are going to be projects, and the last one over here is going to be contact. So again, let me go over here, and this is going to be my contact. So on the other side, actually, we would want a contact. So contact over here. So let's save it, and now I can see that I have my links, I have my header over here, and I have my button. So now I would need to go to CSS and actually style it. So let's go to our main CSS, and actually let's go all the way to the top. You can see that we started working on a nav over here. We had a nav with a background of light, and now we're just going to add some more styles over here. So first things first, we have a nav over here header. So what we would want for the header, well, first of all, like I said, I would want to have a display, and we're going to do a display over here flex over here like this. So we're going to have a display of flex. So now you can see that the actual button is over here and the logo is still here. Now once we have the display flex, we're going to have a justify content. This is going to be space between, so we're going to make sure that there is more than enough space in between. Then we're going to do a padding 0.25 rems and 1 rem. So top bottom is going to be 0.25, and left and right is going to be 1 rem. And over here let's do a border bottom, And for the border bottom, we would want over here 0.5 REMs, solid, over here, solid, and let's do over here var. So we're gonna have a var, and this is gonna be dark. So this is gonna be our dark border over here. Now once we have the border, let's actually work with a button over here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna say nav btn. So for the nav button, we would want font size over here. This is gonna be 3 REMs. So this is gonna be the big button over here. However, we would want to place it in the center. And we know that since this is a child over here, we can do align self, and let's do center over here. So once I center it, you can see that the button is going to be sitting over here. Now once I have it in the center, let's do a color, and the color is going to be var, and let's do gray one over here like this. So now our button is actually gray. Now since the button has been styled, now we can do a links. So over here, these are going to be all the links. So here we're going to say like this, and this is going to be nav. Over here, links. Now for the whole links for our list, we would want list style type. Over here, none. Over here to get rid of these bulletin points. And over here, let's do also background. So the background, we're going to say over here, this is going to be var, and also we're going to do a gray one over here like this. So these are going to be our links. Now once we have the links, then we would want to work with each and every link over here. We know that we have a class in the actual link. So this is going to be nav over here, single link over here. So this is going to be the single link. Now for the single link, first we would want display, and we're going to say display block over here. And once we have the display block, then we would want text decoration none, just to get rid of these annoying underlines. Then we also would want to change the font size 1.5 REMs over here like this. So now they're bigger. Then we would want to do a padding. Now for the padding, we're going to say 0.5 REMs and 1 REM over here. So top and bottom is going to be 0.5 and 1 is going to be over here. So basically you can see that we don't have the right side. So we're just going to be dealing with the left side over here. Now once we have 1 REM, then we're going to have a font style italic over here like this. So this is going to be italic style. And then we'll have a text transform, capitalize with a capital letter, color. Let's do a color again of var. Now in this case, this is going to be the orange color, just to make some changes. So here we're going to say that the text is going to be orange, and then we'll have a transition. So basically, as you can see over here, as I'm hovering, we're going to add a little bit of padding over here, and the color is also going to change. So again, we're going to do it over time. So this is going to be a transition over here, 1, and we're going to say all, 1 second linear over here like this. So this is going to be our transition. Now let's do the actual hovering effect. So this is going to be nav, single over here, link, and let's do hover over here. So let's do background first, background var, and let's do the light one. So over here, we're going to say that this is going to be the light color as we're hovering. So you can see over here, now I have my light color. Then we would want a padding left. So padding, and let's do padding left. Now, as you can see over here, since I have over here padding left and right of 1 REMs, over here what I'm going to do is 1.5 REMs. So basically this is going to be bigger. So once I save it over here, you can see that it's actually going to be moving a little bit to the right because the padding is pushing from the left over here. And the last thing, let's do a cursor, and let's do cursor pointer. So as I'm hovering, this is going to be cursor pointer. Now, once we're actually done with this, we're ready to go and actually start working with a JavaScript. So as you can see over here, we have a button, and in our final project, you can see that actually we can toggle over here this menu. So now let's have a look how we can actually do this. So here we have this nav single link hover, and now it's going to create a little bit of space. Now I'm going to purposely do it a little bit wrong, because technically I should be applying over here these properties and values over here. However, I just want you to see the distinction of what we're doing. and I'm just going to write again from the start over here. So basically what I'm going to say over here like this. So first I would want to target nav links. And like I said, we already have them over here. However, I'm just going to create it from the scratch just so you can see what we're actually doing. And the first things first, what I would want them to disappear over here. So first I'm going to say over here, height, and I'm going to say 0. So I'm going to save it over here, and you can see that the links actually disappeared. However, you can see that only the background disappeared. You can see the links are still here. So for this, what we're going to do is overflow, and we're going to say that overflow is going to be hidden. So once we save it, now actually links generally disappeared. Then again, what we would want is a transition. And from transition, we're going to say 2 seconds. And again, this would be a linear or something like this. So what I'm saying is once I'm going to click the button, they will going to show. However, they will going to show within 2 seconds. Now, how we're going to make them actually show? Well, what we're actually going to do is we're going to say show links class. So this is going to be the new links class over here. And we're going to say over here, height is going to be 264. Now, how do I know that this is going to be 264? So basically, I used a Google Developer Tools, and while I had the links out before they were actually height 0 over here, I just looked at what would be the actual height of my UL, of my nav links. So this is how I know that this is going to be 260 pixels. Now, obviously, you can have whatever size you would want over here, but I think the easiest one is actually go and check before you actually hide them, and or here with the height and overflow, and check it out what it would be the height, and then you can just write whatever height you would want. And it's going to be very simple with the JavaScript. Only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a event listener. So whenever I'm going to click the button, I'm going to apply over here this class to this nav links over here. So let's go ahead over here to the script, and we're going to say very simple. So first we're going to say document over here. Then we know that we have a query selector. So for the query selector, we have a nav over here, btn. So this was our actual class that we would want to target. Now here we're going to say add event listener. Now this is going to be click event listener, and we're going to say that this is going to be function show nav over here. Now the only thing left to do is actually create the function. So I'm going to say over here function show nav over here. And what we're going to write inside this function, we're going to say that first we would want to select the links, and we would want to toggle the class. So again, we're going to have a document, then we're going to have a query selector. Then within a query selector, now we would want to select the links. So nav 2 underscores links. So now we're targeting the links. Then we'll have a class list over here. And for the class list, we're going to say toggle. And what class we would want to toggle? Well, we would want to toggle the actual show links. So over here 2 underscores, and this is going to be show links. So once we save it, now once I'm going to click the button, you can see that my links are actually going to be appearing, and they're going to be appearing over here because I added the show links class. Now this is actually a good time to see that actually I was wrong, because you can see over here that there's something wrong with the height over here. You can see that the height is not actually enough. So first let's go back to the main CSS over here, and let's just get rid of this hidden. So let me just hide it over here. Let me go back over here to my recording, refresh over here, and once I click the inspect over here, and then I'm going to find where is my elements, and within the elements we're going to find nav links, and you can see that my actual size should be 288, because you can see that I have 857 by 288. So we're going to go back over here, and we're just going to change this value. First of all, let's uncomment this, and let's say over here that instead of 264, this is actually going to be 288. So once I actually press it right now, you can see that I'm going to go back over here, and now I'm going to get my actual nav that I wanted. And this is how we can create over here this nav that is actually appearing and disappearing over here with the click event. And the last thing that we would want actually to do is we would want to set up on the bigger screen a different layout over here. So as you can see over here, as I'm changing the screen, also my layout is changing. So here, if this would be actually a flex layout over here like this, now over here, we're going to change it to the actual row. So over here, this would be a column, and this is going to be over here the row. So let's go ahead and let's actually, in order to actually change the layout with a screen size, we need to create a media query. So here we're going to say media screen over here, and we're going to say and over here this is going to be min width over here, and for the min width we would want 768. So we're going to say 768 pixels. Now over here, first what I would want is I would want to start working with the nav. So I'm going to say over here nav, and like I said, since over here now our nav is displayed like this, so we can see that we have one over here element and the second one. Now I would want a display flex. So we're going to say over here display, and we're going to say flex. And now in this video, we're going to be switching back and forth a lot because I think this is going to be probably the most complicated section actually. So once I save it, you can see that this is what I have. So I have few things going on. So right now, they're actually sitting all side by side like this. So this is obviously not something that we would want. So first, I would want to get rid of this border over here for the header, and I also would want to get rid of this button. So if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm just going to say over here like this, that I would want a nav header over here, and we're going to say border and border none over here like this. And also what I would want is a nav btn and display of none over here like this. So if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm save it, see, this is what we have. Now obviously this is not going to be working very great either. We need to actually add a few things over here. So the first one is actually going to be a border bottom, and then we're going to do a flex wrap once we're actually wrapping the elements. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say for the nav, we'll want a flex. I'm going to say wrap, and over here we're going to be wrapping. Then also what I would want is a border bottom, and for the border bottom, we're going to have 0.5 REMs, solid, and var, and this is going to be dark. So pretty much the color that we already used before. So if we're going to go back over here, now I actually should have my color. Now once we actually have the border and we got rid of the button, now we would want to work with the links. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say like this. So first, what I would want for the nav links, we're going to say nav links, and for the links, we would want first a background, and we're going to say over here background transparent. So we would want them transparent. However, remember when we set the height of 0 over here, and only the button could change it to 288. Now with a bigger screen, let's do it like this. Let's say height, and let's put it to auto over here. So once I save it, you can see it right now, all of them are showing right away. So next, what I would want is I would want to set this UL, so on our list, as a flex parent, and actually display them flex like this. Because right now we have the Flexbox. However, we would want to display the actual child and create a parent. So as you can see over here, these are the properties as a child. Because again, this is going to be the child of nav, of parent of the Flexbox. However, we can also set the properties as a parent. So we're going to say over here that we would want to set it as a parent. Now the last one, as a child, what we would want is a flex over here, 1, 0. So grow as much as you have to, shrink, don't shrink, and the base is going to be auto. So what I'm saying over here is, since I know that I'm going to be setting them as a flex in a row, I would want this actual logo to take as little space as possible. So that's why I'm saying over here, stick over here, and the actual nav links is going to take the rest of the space. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say that now as a parent, parent. Now what we would want as a parent. Now over here, we're going to say first that we would want is a display flex. So let's check it out what we have. Sure enough, now you can see that I have my links over here. Now I also would want is a flex wrap. So I would be wrapping. So flex wrap and wrap. So if there's not going to be enough screen size, we're going to be wrapping. Then we're going to do justify content space around. So this is going to be another one. And now I also would want to line them up with an image. See over here, the actual logo is bigger and the links are on the top. So we're going to say over here, align self, and we're going to do center over here. So once I save it, sure enough, now I can see that my links are in actually the center. Now also what I would want is to work over here with this hovering and in general with these links over here. So let me go back over here and let's say over here like this, nav single, and we're going to call this link. Now what I would want for the single link, first I would want background transparent over here like this. Then I would want flex, since these are the children right now for an ordered list, and I'm going to say 1. So grow as much as you have to, don't shrink 0, and we're going to set it as 100 pixels over here. So again, I'm going to save this, and over here this is what we have. Now let's get rid of over here this padding, because as you can see over here, this doesn't look very good if it's actually going left and right. Now I mean, if you wanna, you can actually keep it if this is what you like, but I'm just going to get rid of it. So over here we're going to say like this, we're going to say nav and link. So over here, single link and hover. So what should happen as we're hovering? Padding over here left. And remember when we had the padding, we set the padding for 1 left and right. So what we're going to do over here, we're just going to say padding left is also going to be 1. So basically it's not changing over here. And the color, let's change the color to var. And over here we're going to say dark over here like this. So let me just save this. And as you can see, as I'm hovering, the color is going to be changing to dark, but there's not going to be any movement. So this is how we can actually change the nav bar in our Flexbox project. And as you can see over here, it doesn't have enough space. So actually, since the nav is a Flexbox parent, you can see that it's wrapping on a new line over here. However, once it gets to the smaller screen, now we can just click the button, and now we have our links ready. Now the last thing in this project that I would want to show you is how we can add actually prefixes. So the auto prefixes actually automatically. So we don't actually need to do them line by line over here. And also how we can actually set the actual CSS variables so they actually wouldn't exist. So each and every time there would be actually a color. Now we wouldn't be doing it while we're actually developing, but whatever we are actually pushing out, this would be a very good way to actually set the variables and also set these auto prefixes. Now, in order to do this, you would need to have a Node.js. So if you're going to go to your terminal and if you're going to write Node V, you would have to have some kind of version over here. Otherwise, this is not going to work. Now, I'm not going to go step by step as how I actually created it. It's actually a very simple one. It's actually very oversimplified. However, we will going to be using gulp and we're going to be using CSS next. So how we can actually do this? So if you're going to go to Google and if you're going to type coding Addict LA GitHub over here, and once you press it, you're going to see my repos over here. Now the repo that I would want is going to be CSS next. Now I'm going to pretend that you wouldn't have GitHub. Obviously, if you have a GitHub, you can just actually clone it. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and let's assume that you don't have the GitHub. So here you can see that we have a CSS next. And the only thing you would need to do is actually download zip. So let's download the actual CSS next zip. And we're going to go to my downloads over here. And this is going to be my folder. Now I'm going to open up the folder. And I'm actually going to drag this folder over here to my desktop. I'm going to close it over here. And now let's open up and let's see what we have in a folder. In a folder, I have 2 folders over here. One would be distribution, and then this would be a CSS. So we can just right away delete this because this was actually for the testing purposes. And also for the source, it's the same thing. So we have source, CSS, and also we have main CSS. And we can also right away delete this. So I'm just going to say over here that we would want to move this to trash. So far, what you have is actually going to be 2 folders, distribution with CSS and source with CSS, and both of them empty. Now, next, what I would want is let's grab over here this Flexbox portfolio. Let's find where is our main CSS and just copy this one. So let's say over here that I would want to copy. Now I want to copy this and place it in the source. So don't put it in distribution. Actually place it in the source CSS and paste it over here. So once you have your main CSS, we are ready to go, and we are ready to actually transform this main CSS. So we're going to go back to our terminal over here, and first we would need to actually get to the folder. Well, we have a few options. We can go to the desktop, find the folder, or the easiest one was going to do a CD, and over here we're going to drag this folder over here like this. So now that I know that I'm going to be in my folder over here, now I can actually start working. Now what I would want to do first in my folder. So like I said, we would need to have a node install. So over here we're going to say npm install. And this pretty much is going to install the node packages that I was using over here. So now you can see that once we press, this might take a little bit of time to actually download. But once this is going to be downloaded, we're actually going to be ready to go. And once we have downloaded and once we have the actual main CSS in there, the only thing left to do is just going to type gulp over here, and we're going to call this gulp CSS. Now, once we run the program, we're going to go back over here to our CSS next master. And over here in distribution, remember how we deleted the file? Well, actually, we have the file over here. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to rename the file. And I'm going to say over here that this is going to be style CSS. And we're just going to change it just so we know for sure that we have a different actual file. So what I'm going to say over here is that I would want to, again, copy from my CSS next, and we're going to bring it back over here. Now, obviously, this is not how you would be doing in general, but I really don't want to go through the whole gulp setup, even though this is a very, very basic setup. So this is how we're just going to do it. We're just going to take use of this CSS next master, and we're just going to generate this CSS over here. So I'm going to paste this over here, and now we'll have a style CSS. So now let's go back to my text editor and let's check it out what we have in our styles CSS over here. So the first one, let's do over here like this. Let's actually change it in the index HTML. Where is the source? So you see over here we have the main CSS. So let me just uncomment this and show you what happens if we don't have the CSS. So this is how it's going to look like. And now let's uncomment this and let's change it to the styles CSS. So we have a style CSS, and you can see that everything is still working. Now, why was the whole fuss about? So you can see over here, if I open my style CSS, you can see what I have over here. You can see the first of all, the variables are gone. And because what happens, they are distributed over here like this. You can see that they're distributed with the actual colors for every piece over here. Now also what happens, we have our prefixes. And you can see that I didn't have to go up and down and keep adding the prefixes manually. You can see that right away, since we're using this gulp automation, we have all the prefixes that we need. So this is what I'm talking about, that you can do it by hand, by all means. However, there are way more faster options that you can actually choose from. And you can see over here that it even adds for the gradients, whatever we need. And like I said, adding this by hand is going to be very, very painful. However, setting up your gulp workflow and actually running it through your gulp workflow over here, or just by using the folder over here that I created, then you can actually do it much, much more faster.